Show 173. We have a massive show coming for you guys. On the line with us, live on the YouTube with us, we have Mr. Three-time Olympian, two-time time trial world champion, 2011 Pan American gold medalist, 8-time World Cup winner, two-time overall series champion, 3-time USA BMX #1 pro, including 39 wins on the tour, 5-time USA cycling national champion, and your 2016 Olympic gold medalist, Connor Fields. Thanks for joining us on the show, Connor.
Thanks. I guess I got lucky once or twice.
What an intro. We're live from Las Vegas in the trophy room. Dude, look at all these trophies behind us.
That's a lot. I wrote down all the stats just for that yesterday. I knew that was going to be a mouthful, but I had to get that all in because that is just unreal to say out loud.
That is quite the intro. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
So now, when you hear all that, how is it hearing all that now?
It's different now for sure. Like when you're in it and you're racing, you are just thinking about what's next, right? You don't stop and like give yourself too long a high five, like, good job, dude. Like you don't do that. You keep working on what's next. But then when you're done and you don't have to worry about anything that's next, you look back and you're like, wow, that was pretty good. And it's cool. But at the same time, and maybe this is just, part of the reason that you get all that stuff. I still look back and I think about, well, I wish I would have covered inside on that turn. I wish I would have not hit the gate that lap. And I can tell you all the ones that I almost got just as much as I can tell you the ones that I got. And, maybe hopefully one day that goes away, but it's still there.
I got to think as like a racer, any kind of sport athlete, they always remember those things. It's crazy, like the details you can remember at some races and whatnot like that.
Remember everything, like the sprints you did before Papendal 2015.
I remember what gate I was in 11X at the Grands, but like I barely remember like important things like anniversary dates and things like that.
How is it now not waking up having to train every day? No more sprints.
On one hand, it's great, and on the other, it's not. Like in one regard, it's nice to never have to do big gear sprints up a hill again. But then at the same time, there is something nice about waking up with like a clear goal and a direction and knowing what you're working towards. So I think like that can be replaced and you can find new goals and new challenges and new things that you want to work on. But to me, honestly, the best, like the most enjoyable thing is that I can have a beer and not feel guilty, or I can have dessert and not be like, crap, I don't think Joris had dessert tonight. Things like that.
Live a normal life.
Yeah, just relax a little.
Oh, that's such a good feeling. Well, official congrats on the retirement, Connor. I know it's been a little bit now. What's been the biggest change in your life since you officially announced it? Other than the not training, not riding, not all that stuff.
Nothing too massive. Like I didn't move. I didn't start a new job or anything yet. Like I don't have a huge difference. I think for me, it's just been a lot of free time. Like you realize when you're not training and you're not traveling and you're not working, how much free time you have. And so it's been trying to, do different things and fun, new, exciting things to fill that time, and new hobbies, new things I'm working on, new different things like that. Has been different, but it's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun. And, it's just been, I don't know, it's weird. You spend your whole life doing something. Like I was 7 when I started racing, and now what? You need a second, take a deep breath and try to kind of get your thoughts together before you figure out exactly what's next.
One other thing I just realized is, to me, is just the craziest thing is like, I know your guys' story and history together growing up racing, and the fact that you're both just retired now, just sitting there in Connor's house. We're just doing a podcast right now.
Used to be good back in my day.
Now we're going to go play golf after this too.
It's just, boys just had a career in the BMX world and just living life.
Speaking of growing up in Vegas, what was the BMX scene like growing up? Did you guys have older riders to ride with, jump with, learn how to do everything with?
Yeah. So back in the day, and I mean, a lot of people listening will know about this and a lot of people won't. There was 2 sanctions in America, right? Yeah. ABA and NBL. And Vegas was NBL. We had 2 tracks, Boulder and Nellis were the only 2 tracks growing up. And they were NBL tracks, and they were much more technical. Tom Ritz built both those tracks every year. So they were, big, technical, burly tracks growing up. And we had a lot of good riders here. A couple are still around the sport. Derek Betcher, Nate Burkheimer, a few other guys like that were 18 to 20 years old when I was a kid growing up. And so I had a lot of riders to follow around. The tracks had pro sections, things like that. And then the other good thing about growing up in Vegas is it rains like 10 days a year. So we don't miss days. We don't have to shut it down for the winter. And so you just constantly could continue to improve and get better.
How much school did you have to miss as a kid for that? Like, I don't know, we'll get into like when you started nationals, but I think for us, like it's our school time is like when we can't ride anyways, we don't do anything. So we don't really miss as much, I feel like.
Yeah, I missed a bit. I mean, another good thing about living in Vegas is it's very central. And in the recent years, a lot of the racing has shifted east. But back in the day, especially if you wanted to race ABA, it was all Phoenix, California, Reno. It was very
drivable.
It was all very West Coast. Yeah. So I missed Fridays. And this is also before 3-day nationals were a thing. So you could drive in on Friday morning for practice and you'd miss one day of school. So I missed a bit of school, but it wasn't anything ever too crazy because we weren't having to fly back east or go on Wednesday for a 3-day national or anything like that. When I got to high school, we can get into it in a little bit. It was a little bit more because I was traveling more, but as a kid, I didn't miss too much.
I feel like it maybe changed a bit now, but I think what really helped is you lived a normal life. Like you had a normal childhood, normal school, whatever. Like I think it helped with perspective of just growing up.
Yeah, I think that's like I'm very thankful, and I'm actually going to work on an article on this, but I think for your friends at 15 BMX, but I think for us, our age group, our age bracket, we kind of got serious at the right time because the Olympics didn't exist when we were kids. We just rode because we liked it. And it was like we were not doing sprints when we were 10 to try to go to the Olympics. We were jumping off curbs trying to learn 180. And then we got serious around like 15 because we saw the Olympics on TV at 15. And that was like the time when it was like, okay, that was cool. Let's try to do this. But up until then, it was just for fun, like truly just for fun. Like we wanted to win, we were competitive, but there was never like Olympic aspirations like there are oftentimes now for 6-year-olds. And and so I think we got serious at the right time, and that kind of helped with the balance, but it also later on it helped because you didn't burn out as quickly because they didn't get too serious too soon.
And we had good competition. Like me and Corbin grew up racing together, and there was good races, and we just did it because we wanted to win and do well. There was no like broad goal in the sport. We just loved it.
That's cool. When did you start racing like all the bigger nationals around the country? Kind of, I assume it was pretty young, and then I assume like what came with that was probably a factory ride as well.
Yeah, well, funny you ask. So I was noticing over your shoulder. So right here,
we got, for everyone, this is obviously an audio podcast, but we got live YouTube. We got all the trophies in the back right now too. It is incredible.
So this is 1999 Nellis BMX 4th place.
Right next to the gold.
So that was the first trophy that I ever won. My mom found a flyer for the local bike, or at the local bike shop. She found a flyer for Nellis BMX. And there was advertising races on Saturdays. And she was like, oh, I think Connor would like this. And so we went out the next week and tried it. And then from there, like I loved it from day one. We started doing, back in the day, NBL had a series called Regionals, and it was a little bit like the Gold Cup where it was just in your area. So we started doing some of that and driving to California, Arizona, places like that. And then from there, I just loved it. My parents were willing to commit to taking me to races. And so I started racing more, and just it all kind of spiraled and went there. And I got pretty good pretty quick, but NBL was easier. It wasn't as competitive as ABA. And so I won the NBL, like their equivalent of NAG 1. They didn't have NAG, it was just called National, but their equivalent of NAG 1 when I was 8. And then we're like, all right, we'll try ABA. I'll never forget this. We drove to Lake Paris for a local race, and I got motoed. And I'm like, NAG 1 8 expert at NBL.
He's got a big number 1 on his back.
So I show up at 3 hours. Like my dad loves to tell the story, but I cried the whole way home. It was a 3-hour drive home, and I was bawling because I thought I was king shit. And I show up at this race and do that. And my dad, he loves this story. He, I guess, said to me, he goes, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, or do you want to swim in the ocean? And
such a good quote.
And I'm like,
that's awesome.
I'm like heaving my 8. I'm like, oh shit. So we started to race ABA. And then from there, that was when I literally at that time started racing Corbin and Tori and Tommy Zula and like a lot of the guys who are still around today. And that next season, started taking it more seriously and trying to do well. And that was the year you were winning the grands and Fernie J flew by you.
When we were 11.
No, we were 10.
10,
Yeah. But I still remember that. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast this morning, but I still remember that.
What do you think helps you progress so much in amateur? Because I know, like, obviously growing up, Corbin was the guy and would beat us most of the times until we were 15, 16. So do you think it helped you getting beat more down the first straight, especially in learning track speed, tactic, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like, I think a couple things that helped. Like, I rode everything, like not just the track. Like you remember when we were kids, we would ride our bikes. Remember 24, the dirt jumps, and like all the different trails and skate parks and like just riding everything. But I was also small, and it's funny because now I'm like a pretty big dude. But when we were kids, I was kind of the last to grow. And so everybody around me grew first. And you see this to this day. If you look at the 15X months, some 15-year-olds are just farther along in their development than others. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of the last one to grow. So I learned I had no choice but to learn how to scrap and kind of like race better, be better on the track, but then also be better at track speed, because I definitely wasn't pulling out of the gate. But then when we got to like 15, 16, and I caught up physically, and then it was kind of a level playing field, I had all those other ingredients, plus now I had the physical strength. So without a doubt, like that helped, learning how to lose, learning how to be scrappy on the track, things like that. Once everything caught up, it was without a doubt helpful.
So I think it's hard for kids growing up. There's a lot of kids that get beat down the first straight a lot. It's frustrating when you're 12, 13, 14, but you can develop those skills, especially at a younger age. By the time you catch up in size like you did, you're so much better off.
Yeah. I mean, Justin Posey was the same.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of guys that are the same. And then there's a lot of guys who physically mature really early and they win everything at like 11, 12, 13. And then when everyone catches up, they don't have the other ingredients and they're in trouble. And you could see it a mile away. Like when we watch like 11, 12, 13-year-olds, we're like, yes, no, yes. Like you can exactly see. But it doesn't make it any easier when you're the small kid. Like it's so hard. You could do 5 times as many sprints as everybody else, and there's just nothing you can do. You're going to battle with a pocket knife, and these people have a machine gun. It's just not fair.
James hit his growth spurt at about 24.
Yeah, I say it all the time. I'm a 2-year late bloomer. I was one of the young kids. I was the small kids. So it's the same. When I was in high school, all my buddies, I was the shortest one. So I know the feeling. It's tough too when the parents are on the kids like that, and watching from the outside, it's just like they're small. They're gonna grow. It's gonna be a little easier. They're gonna get stronger. It's like
be patient,
easy. Like just wait a little bit.
How you do at the fall nationals in 13X does not dictate your entire career. Okay.
Oh, it's so funny.
So there's obviously some pressure, especially when you start doing better and you get on factory teams as an amateur. There can be a lot of pressure as an amateur on factory teams, and I dealt with that when I was younger. Do you have any specific stories come to mind with?
One specific one when you were chosen over me. So in 4 or 5, Tori and I were teammates on Hyper, and that team was actually a wagon.
It was a wagon.
Elise Post was on that team. Donnie Robinson, Chad Curley, Tori, myself, Anthony DeRosa, Jacob Abbey. Like,
God damn.
And it was not Nick Long, but there were some other dudes
riders on it.
It was an absolute wagon. And I will never forget this day. I got home from school and my dad sat me down and said, "Hey, Connor, I have bad news. You've been dropped." And it was like mid-season. I got straight up dropped. Just no way. So that night, on Friday night, we went to Boulder BMX, and I was jumping this triple that I always jump, and I cased it. My frame shattered into 3 pieces.
No way.
My hyper frame disintegrated. Like the entire top tube,
very symbolic.
It was its own piece. And so I'm on the ground, like bleeding, crying my eyes out. And I wasn't hurt, thankfully, but like in one day I got dropped, shattered my frame. So then I didn't have a team. I wasn't sponsored. And Berlin Harris from Super Camp let me kind of hang out in his tent. And I rode for Super Camp for a couple of years, and I didn't have a sponsor. And that was like the lowest, I guess, point of my amateur days. And then Nick Long's dad, Donovan, asked me to be on at this time it was Phantom On Track. It was back in the day. He asked me to be on the team, but only for NBL races.
That team was a wagon too.
Yeah, but I wasn't good enough for the ABA races. I was only races. So when they would race like Boulder and like my home tracks, I would wear Shelby Long, Nick's sister's jersey, because I wasn't good enough to be on the actual team.
That was kind of crazy too back then, because you could ride 2 separate teams.
Yes.
NBL and ABA.
Yes.
No
So
way.
I was good enough for the NBL team because I could win an NBL race, but I was not good enough for the ABA team. So I did that for about a year. And then I'll never forget, I was in Pasco, Washington. You remember this?
Yeah.
So Pasco, Washington, I was absolutely pulling this weekend. And Donovan invited me to be on the team. And that was like when I got back onto, like 4 years after I got dropped from Hyper. Didn't really have a ride for 4 years. And then I got back onto a factory team, and I was on Intense Phantom on track until I got to junior.
But even the factory teams, the amateurs are ruthless. Like they'll drop. I had the same exact story with Hyper. I came home from school and my parents were like, "Yeah, sorry, we need to talk to you. You've been dropped off."
You're 11 years old and being fired.
I remember crying that night.
Yeah.
I was 12 years old or whatever I was. Yeah, you basically get fired as a kid. I mean, that's hard to deal with.
And with Corbin too, growing up, he rode for Redmond and I rode for Phantom on track. And there was a few years, but those were like the two teams that were battling. And so on the team sheet, I would be on the team sheet for Phantom and Corbin would be on the team sheet for Redmond. And oftentimes the entire team sheet would just come down to who beat the other. Because
no way.
The other riders, it was like Chris Blevins, who's UCI world champion now in cross country. He would be on ours. I think it was like Nick Long would be on ours. Rusty Nesvig, who never lost, would be on ours. And then, Redmond had their guys who were never going to lose. It would literally just be, if I beat Corbin, we would win the team sheet. If he beat me, they would win the team sheet. And so at the Grands, like, I didn't even care about like NAG 1. I just wanted to win the team sheet because it was all on me. Amounts of pressure.
That's insane. How was there like pressure from like obviously like if you get dropped, there's pressure from a team manager, but like these days it even seems like there's pressure from the kids. Like, was it the same then? Like team managers like, all right, yeah, we need you to go get a win here. Like this is on you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember, to be honest. I'm sure there was, but I think for me personally, I always put enough pressure on myself that it didn't matter what anybody else was saying to me. Like I felt that pressure anyway. But I'm sure that there was some of that going on. But, then at the same time, sometimes I look at it, and this is probably every older athlete in every sport ever. They look at it and they're like, it was so much better back in my day. And then you look at it and you're like, it wasn't like that back then. We did it this way. We always did that. But then I'm sure it was the exact same. And we just don't remember.
Yeah, probably. That's fair. Yeah.
So as you got into junior, obviously you ended up signing with Free Agent. So what was it like getting on team with Free Agent with Bennett and Maris at the time, who just won the Beijing Olympics, and getting to junior and everything?
It was cool. So I remember Dale Holmes asked me to be on Free Agent, and I thought it was an awesome opportunity because I was now going to be the only amateur on a pro team, and it was like a direct pathway to a pro ride. And the team at the time was Kyle Bennett, Maris Strombergs, and Christian Bessery. Like combined, I think they've got about 1 million wins. And I'll never forget Reno 09, which used to be the season opener. I was racing juniors, like my first junior elite men race. And then it was 17-18X, I think. And we went to dinner, and no one had met Maris at this point. Like he was just kind of like a
mythical creature.
And people got to remember, like, oh wait, this is like when we were on MySpace, I was making sure that like I was in the same position on Tori's top 8 that he was on mine type thing. Like we didn't have access to watching all of these races.
No.
So like when Maris won the Olympics, I was like, who? Like you didn't even know who the guy was.
Yeah.
So we went to team dinner Friday night, and I was sitting at the table with like, Kyle was my hero, and then Christian and Maris, and then Maris ordered the chicken, and like I was gonna order something else, and then Maris ordered chicken. And I was like, chicken. Maris, and I mean, it was really cool. I learned a lot from those guys. Like they didn't necessarily like pull me aside and teach me things, but just simple stuff.
Just by being around them.
They showed up to the track every day with their water jug. Right. And so even up until 2021, 12 years later, I showed up at the track with my water jug. Right. And then like they were really good about, like, one thing that they were really good about was like being good to their sponsors and branding, having the right hat on, having the right shirt on, being professional, so signing autographs, being a pro.
Yeah.
So I kind of was around that young. So I kind of learned from them. But at the same time, it was very motivating because I could see what they were doing, and like I wanted to be there. And I just kind of copied them. But then at the same time, I was like, I want to beat them. So I was trying to kind of get there, and it was really, really cool to be around that for sure.
That's cool. I got to ask if, so you're talking about racing junior and like amateur at the same time. Did you have to go through the time when you had to race two different gate calls at the same time as well?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Hell yeah. That was the prime.
and so you'd be in the ABA gate, and there'd be half the gate slingshotting, and then you'd 30 minutes later, you'd be racing UCI with the random cadence.
I know sometimes too, we ran like a junior semi, and like behind the gate, our 16X, our 16X semi would be like staging up. So you'd kind of like try and make the main without blowing too much energy.
Yeah.
And get in the gate for an ABA gate and cadence next lap.
Yep.
Unreal.
Kids these days will never know.
I mean, and one other thing that kids will never know is Corbin Straw would race junior and A Pro. And so that would go literally that like four motos apart. Like he would race his
and often win both.
He would race, smoke me and Tori, go straight back up the hill, line up in A Pro, and then win A Pro.
That's unreal. Yeah. That's crazy.
So your first kind of experience with World Cups was Salt Lake City as a 16-year-old. 15-year-old. So you went there, obviously, probably weren't expecting anything, racing a bunch of double A's. You're at Dew Tour. It's like a whole thing, and you light up the time trial. What was that experience like?
So people have to understand the rules were different back then, and you didn't go, the racing age wasn't January 1 to December 31st. Mm-hmm. It shifted as soon as the Worlds ended. So on August 1st, like if you race the Worlds as a 15-year-old, because birth year, you are 15, on August 1st, you're racing 16. It would shift over. So 2008, we were 16, like UCI, 16 years old, because we turned 16 in the year 2008. And then on August 1st of 2008, we shifted to 17, which was now junior elite. My birthday's in September, late birthday. So when this race in the Dew Tour happened, which was like at the end of August of 2008, I was 15 years old with the racing age of 17. So like on that day, I was 15 years old. UCI, I was 17, which meant I was old enough to race a World Cup. So, we show up at Salt Lake City, and why not? It's a 5-hour drive. Like, we'll just go. And it's 3 weeks after the Olympics. So not everybody was there, but like all the Americans were there. Mikey Day, Donnie was there, Nick Long, guys like that were there. The Dutch Army was there, Kaylin Young. I will never forget the night before we were at dinner, and I was looking at Kaylin, and I was scared. I was legitimately scared. I'd never seen him like covered in tattoos. He was a wild child.
It's intimidating.
I'm 15. I'm used to racing like us. Like, and so I just remember being scared. And then this is another absolutely hilarious story. So we get there. The track's sketchy. It's like
that's a gnarly track too. Like,
but at the same time, and not to toot my horn, I think we can all kind of agree. I was well ahead of my time when it came to skills. Mm-hmm. Like I had more skills at 15 than half the pros did at that point in time. I had no trouble with the track whatsoever, which helped. I was comfortable. Time trial goes, I get 5th. And there was only guys there. I think there was only 4 racks of motos. So I was second pick in the 4th moto.
So you text Chris.
So Nick Long got 4th in the time trial. I got 5th. So I had second pick. And so the moto sheets come out as they did, like right after the time trials, the moto sheets came out. And I remember texting Nick, and because we're teammates at the time on Phantom.
Yeah.
And so I text him, I say, hey, you have first pick. What are you going to pick tomorrow? And he goes, I don't know. 1. I've never done a race. I don't know. Like, I don't, nowadays if somebody texts you the night before asking what gate you're going to pick,
dude,
what?
So what is this guy on?
1. The third pick in that moto was Chris Fox, who also rode for the same team. So I texted him. I said, hey, Nick said he's going to pick 1. I have second pick. If I go 3, where would you go? Because I didn't know. So
he's just at Olive Garden his pass. So like, dude, I don't know, man.
So he texted me. I'm pretty sure he texted me back. He said, like, I don't know. I'll figure it out tomorrow. And so then, the motos go, and I end up making it out of motos. And then I get to the semi, and I get stuck in the semi. But I mean, it was still a pretty cool experience to make the semis as a 15-year-old at a
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's fucking unbelievable.
But at the same time, it was a good little eye opener of like, okay, I'm got some work to do, but I'm not that far off of these guys.
Just see where you're at.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it also, it helped that like I wasn't scared. Like I respected these guys, but at the same time, like I wanted to beat them. So it was a good kind of first step. And then the next year was when I went to free agent. So it was all kind of at the same time where I went to free agent. I got to exposed to what was going on with the pros, realized I wasn't that far away, and then just kind of made you hungrier and hungrier as it kept going. Meanwhile, I'm in high school, like partying every Friday night with the boys. Living like a double life, like waking up Saturday morning to go to the gym, and the Friday night, like, hanging out with the boys.
That's so funny. Quickly, how was your gate in Salt Lake City? What's your favorite gate you've ever shuttered on, Connor? Probably a pro gate Europe. What's the best gate you've ever raced on a World Cup circuit?
On a World Cup circuit?
World Cup circuit. What's your favorite gate you ever raced on?
What, like 1 through 8? There's only one gate in the World Cup.
No, like what gate at a specific track?
What track? What stop? What was your favorite one? You're like, oh, this gate just timed everything, but it's perfect.
I don't know. I didn't think that much about it. I just red light goes, I go.
We'll go with Santiago del Estero, and they had a few Santiago del Estero.
I'd have to think about what maps. I don't know. Maybe Zoller, like it squeezed 10 cranks.
Perfect. They got a good.
Yeah, there you go. That's all because it's pro gate Europe. So.
Winning starts the great gate. Connor had plenty great starts on Europe. Won many World Cups on Pro Gate Europe.
Absolutely.
So go ahead, James.
Go to you. That's all right.
Wow, we just fucking blew the flow right there. Yeah, you go.
Getting into 2009.
I might get my friend's house watching mom and dad fight. I'm just sitting there, just like, what do I do?
Petting the golden retriever.
Where's the dog? No, I mean, getting into 2009, I think that was, I don't know if you consider that kind of like the first little breakthrough, but I mean, you're still young as hell. You 17 when you raced the World Cup in Chula Vista. Yeah. Tell us about that. I want to hear about that experience. Like a young kid, had only raced the one World Cup, and then you put it in the final and go on to get on the podium.
Yeah. So you got to back up a little bit. So March of 2009, we were racing Junior Elite in DeSoto, and I ruptured my spleen bros.
No shit.
Yep.
I had no idea. Okay. Wow.
And it was the rhythm section. And there's a guy named, I don't remember his name, but a guy from Florida bumped into me and we crashed, and I like went into his handlebar, and we went to the hospital, and I was like, really like pale and not looking good. They were like, you're not okay. And so I actually had to get flight for life, like a helicopter to a different hospital to like take care of that. But then afterwards, like, all right, you've got 6 months off. Like that was the recovery, like no rehab, no nothing. Just don't do anything for 6 months. Don't risk impact. And so that ended in August. And so I did a national in Grand Junction. It was like my first race back. Did the NBL Grands in 17X or 16X. My birthday was a week after the NBL Grands.
Just hilarious for a World Cup race.
So
16X.
Yeah.
The NBL Grands. And then that next week I turned 17. And then the next week was Chula World Cup. And so we show up first round, me and Tori were in the same moto. Oh,
no way.
I gotta back it up.
You almost didn't make it.
I had to roll the first jump in my time trial because I unclipped out of the gate. And so then you had to go your second round. This is back when they had 2 rounds of time trials. And then in the second time trial, I unclipped again. Had to jump the first jump with 1 foot clipped in, 1 foot clipped out.
Panic pedal.
Trying to make it. I ended up making it out of the moto, or making it out of time trial into the moto with Tori. First moto, eat shit in the third straightaway. Me and Danny Danny Kellogg and I think Weston Pope eat shit in the third straightaway. I'm like covered in blood, sitting on 8 points after the first round of motos.
Oh no.
Donnie Robinson's in this moto at the time.
And he just won the world too.
Yeah. Second moto, I got second. So it was like an awesome lap. And I was out in gate 8. So I was like, okay, I'll go gate 8 again in this third moto. Meanwhile, 2 guys had dropped out because they had gotten hurt. So there's guys in gates 1 through 5, and then me out in 8. Like Neek, Neek even before Neek was around. Third moto, I end up beating Donnie. So 17-year-old first year junior elite just blows by Donnie, the world champion, on the third straightaway. Get to the finish line, and I feel this huge arm pump. Not for beating Donnie, but for making it out of motos.
Just excited.
I was excited for motos. And
even making out of motos when you're 17 is it's a big deal. Making like a quarter semi when you're like junior is a big deal. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
That's respect. I would be. Yeah.
I get to the quarter, make it out of the quarter, get to the semi, make it out of the semi, and get 8 again in the main, end up getting 3rd in the main. And that was kind of surprising, right? I expected, I don't think anybody did. Like, my goal was to make it out of the time trials, honestly. And then the podium was Maris, Sam, and me. And I was like 17 years old and just on cloud 9. I was supposed to race 17X the following day at the small track.
Nice.
But I will never forget that night. So do you remember Trent Woodcock?
Yep.
Remember his dad?
I never met his dad. No.
A big dude,
large human being. 6.
Okay. he's like such a nice guy.
Is he bigger than Trent?
At the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Trent was a pretty big kid, I feel like, too. Yeah. Okay.
We go down to the gas lamp in San Diego, and Trent's dad distracts the bouncers, starts distracting them to get me and Trent a chance to run in when they're not looking. And so we're set gold at the official. This is back in the day where, at this point in time, every World Cup had an after party, like an official one, where they would rent out a venue and they would have a party.
And they have an award show at the after parties and everything. Like, it was official.
Shows, there was a whole thing.
Yeah.
And every rider would go. Like, it wasn't like only a couple would go. Like, everyone would go. The coaches would go. The staffs would go. Fun. Everyone would go and celebrate after the race.
Yeah.
I'm 17. I'm walking around. Everyone's like, "How the hell are you in here?" And it ends up being like one of the greatest nights of my life. And I just remember being in the taxi cab back to the hotel at like 3 a.m, thinking like, "This is it. Like, this is the peak. Like, life is this is the peak." I was at school on Thursday. My teacher getting mad at me for not handing in my school assignment, and I just made $1,000. Like, look at me, like, totally one of those moments.
Unreal.
But then the funny thing after that was 3 weeks later was Frejus. I think you went to that, didn't you? 09?
Yeah.
So I get a call from USA Cycling, and they're like, "Hey, you want to go to Frejus?" And I was like, "I can't. Like, we've got the homecoming dance, and I've already asked my date." And
she said yes.
I was in love with this girl. And I was on, I guess it's so lame, but I was on homecoming court, which is like, you're wearing like the satchel and like your homecoming king, like that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, nope, I'm not going to Frejus. 17-year-old kid turning down an all expenses paid trip to the south of France so we could. And so I get to homecoming, and so she wasn't my girlfriend. I just had a crush on her. And I remember telling this girl that I liked her. And I remember her just full friend zoning me, like, I just like you as a friend. And I just remember sitting there so devastated that I chose not to go to Frejus because I want to take this girl to homecoming. I asked my love, and she shut me down. And it's so like rock
gone to France.
That was just rock bottom right there.
As a kid,
team's just like, "No, sorry, can't go to Papendal. I got to dance.
Got a school dance.
I got a school dance." I asked the girl already. She said yes. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So
unreal.
A good one.
You say, regret things in your career. That could be one of them right there.
Yeah. You never know.
Yeah.
Never know. It could have gone to Frejus, and it could have gone either way. Maybe I did well. Maybe I broke my legs. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise.
But obviously,
never know.
Kept the momentum rolling, because going to Madrid, first World Cup was in Madrid in 2010, and you ended up just going with your dad and got on the podium again, and we're kind of off to the races.
Yeah. So at that point in time, in 2010, USA Cycling had 4 spots for the national team to go to the World Cups. 1 for a junior, and then 3 for elites. And it was like, that was the hard line. That was what they were doing. And going into that, me and Corbin were 2 awesome juniors. And I think he made the semis at Chula. Like, he did well. But I had gotten that 3rd, but I didn't go to Frejus. And so going into Madrid,
forgotten about,
USA Cycling was like, "We're going to pick Corbin." And I remember being like, I've done 2 World Cups, and one of them was a 3rd, and I'm 17.
Yeah.
And so they didn't add a spot or decide to take me. And so my dad was like, kind of like frustrated. And he's like, I feel for you, Connor. You should be there. Like, you know, you've got on paper, a 50-50 shot of getting on the podium. So let's take you there. Let's do this. So we go, and I get second. And none of the other riders that were on the chosen team made it out of quarters. And so USA Cycling at this time had a rule where if you funded your own way to a race and you were not put on the national team, you could get reimbursed and they would pay all your travel back for going to that race. If you were underage, they would reimburse you and a guardian. So I was 17. So they had to reimburse me and my dad. And my dad had read the rule book and he knew what was going on. So he kept every receipt.
We're going for steak tonight, Connor.
Oh, yeah. So he ends up sending in this invoice, and you know, they could have all been avoided had they added me. But in one regard, it was good because it motivated me and it pissed me off. And it was kind of, you know, a lot of athletes have that like chip on their shoulder, and it gave me that chip on my shoulder. But after that, I was never left off the team again.
Crazy. They learned their mistake right then and there.
But that was one of the craziest things too. Like, so at this point in time, Tori, we're both still in high school. We're 17 years old.
Like maybe grade 12?
Grade 12,
yeah.
17 years old. 3 a.m, just running amok through the streets of Madrid.
Looking back, I mean, it's just like,
Jesus. I don't know how
we're fine. We got a dial.
Went to the after party, kept going, and you know, different times.
Unreal.
Times. Yeah.
What was it like being like in school, coming back to regular school life, and then telling your buddies, yeah, no, I was just in Madrid. I was just in Spain. Like,
it was kind of normal.
Like people didn't, I don't know if people necessarily understood. And I don't blame them, because I don't think a 16, 17, 18-year-old truly understands, you know, the significance of what you're doing.
It's kind of just whatever.
Oh, like, cool. You went to the airport, went on a plane, went somewhere cool. That's fun. They didn't really realize it. It wasn't until now when you look back and it's like you're 17 years old, you know, getting a $5,000 trip expensed to go to Madrid, Spain, and race your bicycle to you know, represent your country, and then go out on an all-night bender and then fly home and go to school Monday morning. Like, that's not normal. But at the time, I don't think you realize it.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's crazy though.
So at that point in time, I was 17. I'd done 3 World Cups and I had 2 podiums.
2 for 3.
Yeah.
So obviously that year too, like you still did well. Like you did well in Copenhagen. I think you got a 5th in Copenhagen. And obviously, like going into the Worlds and everything, you're feeling good. Goal was to win Junior Worlds. So obviously, like, yeah, the Worlds was obviously a tough race. Winning.
It's actually funny though, going into the Worlds. You said my goal was to win. My goal wasn't to win. I'd already known I was going to win. Like, that was already a foregone conclusion. My goal, this is so dumb and I'm so embarrassed, but it's the most 17-year-old thinking of all time. My goal was not just to win. It was to have a faster lap time than the elites.
Fuck. Okay.
You get a little older and you realize it doesn't matter if your lap time's a minute if you were the first person across the finish line.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers the lap time. And I had like a 20 bike length lead out of the second turn, like gone. Dropped the hammer, went way too fast into this rhythm section and just exploded.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely exploded. And you know, I probably could have not pedaled the rest of the track and been fine, you know, but for whatever reason, I just wanted to not just win. I wanted to prove a point. But in hindsight, it was a great lesson to learn.
I was going to say, what'd you learn from that? Because obviously you had to take some time off because you kind of got hurt.
I got hurt. Yeah.
So it must have been a good transition going to, like, in a way, a good transition, because you probably learned and had some time.
Well, it made you realize it doesn't matter about your lap time. It doesn't matter about, you know, how much you win by. It just matters that you do the job. And so it really kind of made me stop and be more methodical about thinking things through, and not trying to prove points or do anything like that, and have a reason for why you're doing everything. But the first time I led a race after that, I was shitting my pants because I just was waiting to explode. Absolutely explode. And the first race I led after that was a World Cup. So I didn't win anything in between that. So I was absolutely terrified in between.
So yeah, Chula next year. Yeah.
But yeah, that was cool. So I finished out that year. I went to Fréjus in 10. I did not turn out. Finished out that year. I got 3rd in the series, which was cool. And then ended the junior career. And then going into 2011, that was when Chase came around, and we did some changes there.
Yeah. So what was that opportunity like to sign with Chase? Because obviously you've been on free agent for a couple of years, had a lot of success. Like, was it a tough decision going to Chase? What was it like?
Yeah, I think what happened,
Especially because they were a startup too. So
yeah, well, I think what happened with free agent is that they had kind of, I was kind of the future guy, and they expected that it was going to take a little bit longer for me to be ready to be on that same level as Christian, Kyle, and Maris. And I think they had kind of planned for like whenever Christian or Maris, because they were older, not Maris, but Christian and Kyle, they were older at the time. And I think they were kind of thinking like for when one of those guys retires, moves on, or isn't quite good enough anymore, we'll have Connor to kind of be the next guy. Like the way motocross teams do it, just having, somebody in the waiting ready to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I got way better, way quicker. And like now all of a sudden we have to have 4 like dudes on the team. And like, that's a lot of budget.
blows the budget.
So like Maris, and all that.
Yeah.
So the offer that was sent, I didn't think was representative of what I had earned getting 3rd in the World Cup Series and the potential that I had proven at this point. It wasn't just like maybe, it was like already proven.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed out about it. And, I told somebody who was kind of helping me out at the time. And then he called Pete Delusky and said, hey, I think you could Connor's available. So he and I went to lunch, Firehouse Subs, and
Hell of an establishment.
Sub shop.
he sat down. He said, "Hey, we're starting a company. Me and Chris Opelveg are starting a company, and we want to sign you. We want you to ride for us for the rest of your career." And I said, "Awesome,
for the rest of your career."
Yep. And I said, "Well, it wasn't like they signed a contract like a career long."
Yeah, but
they said that our goal is to have somebody ride there for the rest of your career. And I said, "Okay, cool. Like, what's the name?" And they're like, "We don't have one." And I was like, "Give it the bike," and they're like, "No." And he said, and so essentially I was betting on Pete and Christoph to be able to do this because they had nothing to show me. And so I took the leap and the risk, and I signed with a company that didn't even have a name at the time. And it ended up in hindsight being the best decision that I ever made. And it was a perfect storm because, me and them, it all worked out, and look at what we were able to create. But it also worked out that I had the injury from the world championships where I'd gotten hurt because I missed the first 6 months of 2011 because I had had knee surgery. So it gave them time to figure out the name, and they gave them time to get a bike made so that when I was ready to race in June for my one and only A Pro race I ever did, Salt Lake Day 1, they had a bike for me, and we were able to kind of get moving on it.
If I remember correctly, it was a bright green random, like no stickers on a bike, wasn't it?
That was the one we used for the photo shoot.
Okay, that was a photo shoot bike. Okay.
Yeah. So
interesting. That's got to be wild for them as well. Like, I mean, obviously y'all had all that success, but they don't have a bike. You're not riding because you're injured. All right, let's sign a deal for the years to come. That's just,
I think what the thought process was is that they were going to wait another year until they had their stuff together more. But then when I was available, they were like really more willing to kind of move quicker.
Didn't want to lose.
They didn't want to lose the opportunity. Yeah, I think that was
so after all that, after you signed them, you obviously said you only did one race. What was your status going into the Chula World Cup that year? How ready were you? Were you like prepared to kind of race for a win?
Kind of. I mean, I raced Salt Lake. Day number 1, I raced A Pro and I won. And so I told myself double A the second day. And then the second day I went last in my motors. Like got absolutely, I think you were in the moto. Yeah, I got absolutely annihilated, not even close. 3 weeks after that was the Worlds. I won my semi and had like second pick in the main. Like,
oh shit, I totally forgot about that word. Yeah.
I mean, it was, I don't know why, but for whatever reason at that time, I could go well off the Supercross hill and I could not do well on a flat hill. And so I had already made the world's main going into that Chula World Cup that year. And I wasn't necessarily the quickest guy to the bottom of the hill, but I knew without a doubt that I was the fastest dude from the bottom of the hill to the finish line. And I mean, the time trial, we did time trials back then, so it was provable. But I knew that was my home track. I had raced it a bunch of times. I was very comfortable. I just knew that if I hit the bottom of the hill even, that I would be okay. And with that said, though, nothing prepares you for the very first time that you're getting ready for the main event at a World Cup and somebody says you have first pick. Like that's a different, I mean, one thing to go into a main and be 5th pick. It's
Yep.
another thing to go into a main and be 1st pick.
A lot of pressure.
Wild amounts.
A lot of pressure.
And then you're like, all right, so gate 1, like you confirming it with your coach or whoever you confirm it with, and like gate 1. And then you're like, when you're sitting in lane number 1 in a main event, it's a bit different than sitting in 6.
Yeah.
It's different, but ended up winning that, which was awesome. I had no idea everybody had crashed behind me. And that was the first time I led a race, or at least a big race, until or since the world championships. And if you watch the video, it's pretty funny. Like when I jumped through the track, I'm like, it's the stiffest you've ever seen me ride. Don't crash.
Don't fuck this up.
The one time in my career I wasn't wild on the bike. I was just trying not to crash.
That's why that one too, like that first turn was, did you feel comfortable then? Like, were you comfortable going that low in the turn? Because although like that turn has some iconic passes, it's not super banked. It's pretty steep. I always thought it was pretty slippery. So to watch like you make a move like that in that one was impressive.
I guess. I don't remember. I mean, I was like,
Yeah.
I must have been.
I was fine.
That was fine. I mean, I made it through, so clearly. Yeah.
Obviously, I'm sure that like having ticked that box, winning a World Cup, you got on a roll because you got into 2012, the Olympic year, and won the first few World Cups. So how did that change your mindset maybe going into 2012 after winning 2011?
I think it's something where like everybody thinks that, not everybody, but if you're a person that thinks that you can win, it's one thing to think you can win, it's another to know. And then once you do it and you have the confirmation and you can say, okay, I know what that takes, I know how to do it, then it unlocks like the next level, right? And you see it a lot of times where a rider will get the first win and then they'll go on a bit of a roll because they kind of prove that they can do it. So yeah, going into 2012, at that point in time, I mean, I still wasn't a shoo-in for the American team. Like the first step was to make the American team. So in the off season, it was just trying to make the team, and I had to get results to make the team.
I mean, yeah, those years too. I mean, that's still, I think when US was considered one of the most dominant countries of BMX ever.
Especially, it's not just like they're going to just pick through fast dudes. Like there's obviously certain criteria. Like you guys had whatever leading points, trials, and then coaches pick. So
also one of the stupidest things I've ever seen going into that year, I won 3 World Cups in a row. And this is back in the days where there was one a day or one a weekend. It wasn't like you had Saturday, Sunday. So like you had one shot in a weekend. And so there was like 6 or 7 World Cups that were like part of the criteria for the Olympic selection. And I won half of them. And then I didn't end up getting the coach's pick because David Herman not coach's pick, points. Sorry. I didn't end up getting the points because David Herman got like 3rd or 5th in every World Cup. I had like 3 wins and a couple of quarters. So he ended up just being more consistent. But then they're like, Connor, you have to race the trials. And I was like, what? I was like, can I just get the coach's pick and like skip the trials? Like, I'll know who's going to get the coach's pick. And they're like, if you don't race the trials, we won't pick you on the coach's pick. I was like, for real?
It's crazy. That's fucking insane.
I wanted to like train and like start getting a prep going, but like you can't get a prep
going. You got to
going.
peak 6 weeks out and then again at the ocean.
I mean, and in hindsight, I wish I would have called their bluff. But when you're 19, I was 19, so I didn't have like the courage to call their bluff. But like looking back, I should have said, I'm not racing the coach's
Why
pick.
didn't they just pick the coach's pick before the trials?
One would think. I would have called the bluff because maybe it would have given me a better opportunity
then you
to
risk,
do well in London.
You risk another one of your guys getting injured at the trials.
Yep. So I really wish I would have just said no.
That's a good point. Yeah. Like, why don't they just, okay, we had these 2 and then we have one final spot up for grabs. That's crazy.
It should be one final spot up for grabs.
Wait till we talk to trials in 16.
Yeah.
The reason America doesn't do a trials anymore.
Yeah.
Way too much risk you might get the wrong guy. It's way too much risk.
It worked out the 3 times I did it with Mikey.
They got very lucky
that it worked out.
Very lucky that it worked out all 3 times.
But someone hits the gate and then the things look a lot different.
Yeah. What was the trials experience like? Because sometimes I feel like those can be almost more nerve-wracking than, I don't know, some of the big races.
It was different for you because you're confident.
In one regard, I wasn't nervous because like I knew win or lose, I was gonna be fine. But at the same time, it was very odd because it was a 4-man main.
Yeah, that is weird.
And the whole format of it was silly. But at the same time, it's it's the Olympics. NBC is filming. Everybody's there. It's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
One positive, like if you win the trials, that was the best way to make the team.
Probably got more attention than David.
I've made the team all 3 ways it's possible to make the team. I've won the points, I've won the trials, and I've gotten the coach pick. can confirm winning the trials is the best way to do it because you get all the fanfare and all that. Like nobody remembers who won the
especially because I feel like in the US
points.
in general, Olympic trials is a big deal with swimming, everything. Like they have it for most things. Yeah.
Yep. So it was cool, but it was a weird, like a 4-man main was weird. Like we were in gates 1, 2, 4, and 6. Like it, I mean,
so weird.
Nothing. It's not even close to how it's going to be at the Olympics. No one gets free on either side of them.
Yeah.
It just gives anybody in that final 4. It's just an opportunity with so much space to try to make some ridiculous move.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So obviously next race on the calendar was the London Olympics. So let's talk about that whole experience because obviously heartbreaking for you, but I think like as your friend, especially like seeing you go through it and your journey kind of from London to Rio, like I think it was a big turning point in your career, I would say, for the positive, even though it was, I'm sure, hard to go through at the time.
Yeah. Looking back at it, if I change what happened there, maybe it changes the entire way that the whole overall next 10 years play out. But it almost all happened too much too quick, right? Like I'm 19 at this point and I'm in lane 1 of the Olympic final. And
what was it like knowing you had first pick going to the Olympic final at 19 at that time?
It was part of the plan. That was the goal.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what we were there to do. But at the same time, it's not like I had a lot of experience being in that position, right? I was going against guys like Maris who had already been in an Olympic final, already been in 5 world championship finals, already gotten a bunch of championships. I had won a couple of World Cups, but I'd never won like a major championship title. I'd never even been up for a major championship title. I guess the worlds, I guess I had been, but so it's one of those things where like you can't prepare for it until you're there. And there's a reason why a lot of times people are more successful at their second Olympics than their first, because there's no way to prepare for it. So in a way, it almost came too much, too quick, too soon, I don't want to say easy because I worked hard for it, but it just, all of it happened really quickly. But the issue that I made, or like the mistake that I made in hindsight, is that like, I was already thinking about winning. I wasn't thinking about getting a good start, driving down the hill, hitting the backside of the first jump, covering my inside lines in the turns. Like I wasn't thinking about the steps. I was behind the gate thinking about the after party already. Right. Which is a common mistake that young athletes make, because they don't focus on step by step. They just get ahead of themselves. And, it's a wild experience when you train for years for the Olympics and you're in lane 1 and you've won I dropped 1 lap on the lead up to that. And then all of a sudden now you cross the finish line, it's over, and you ride your bike back to your room and you're like, now what do I do? Yeah. That was tough.
That is tough. Yeah, I thought what's crazy about that whole race too is the fact that you and Twan both 1 and 2 young guys in the main, and like I feel like eyes were on you guys, and then I feel like that's where kind of like did he kind of cut you off, and then everything else happened on the outside where guys just got out clean.
He didn't ride super smart.
He didn't help himself either. If he rides straight, he probably beats me out, cuts me off like cleanly in a way that he's not slowing himself down, and he might win, but he elbowed me second crank straight into me and completely toasted both of our races.
Was it tough after that, getting back into training and moving on from it? Did you think about it a lot? What was it?
It wasn't tough getting back into training, like, because at that point in time, I had just signed with Monster. I had just re-upped my deal with Chase. Like I was all hyped up and ready to go, like chasing some ABA races and things like that. The biggest struggle was to trust myself back in that position. So I struggled for years, from like 2012 through maybe 14, 15, being in that position, being in lane 1 with the pressure on and executing and not missing a start. And like, there's a number of races, ABA, World Cup, things like that, where I'd been in lane number 1 in a position to win and just didn't execute it because I would either try too hard, not try hard enough. I hadn't yet discovered kind of that like level of intensity, focus, mindset that I needed to be at my best. I was very good at it in the back half of my career, but only because I had so many times that I blew it.
Yeah.
Like we get to make mistakes to figure out what works.
Yeah.
So where at the end, the last 2 years of my career, I was 100% confident that when I was in lane 1, I would not make a mistake. And I pretty much didn't in the last 2 years of my career, but it was only because I made 57 mistakes along the way. So it wasn't hard to answer your question. It wasn't hard to get back into training. It was hard to trust myself.
When did you find that you were starting to trust yourself in those situations?
2014 Worlds.
Rotterdam.
I didn't win, but I executed.
You did everything you could.
I did everything right.
Yeah.
And I was in lane 1 in the final, and I had a perfect start.
Yeah.
And even though the result was heartbreaking, that race was the one that made me believe that I could be in that position and do the job.
Did you use different strategies for that race specifically, or is it kind of work in progress up until that, or what'd you do?
It's hard. I mean, it's so long ago. I don't remember. I do remember that like I had a meltdown the night before because I won the last 2 time trial world titles in 12 and 13. And then in 14, I made a mistake. I think I cased a jump or something and got like 7th. And at that point in time, I didn't get 7th in time trials. Like I either won or I got 2nd or 3rd. Like I did, like I wouldn't get 7th.
7th is a huge miss.
Yeah.
You guys suck.
I didn't. And so I lost my rainbow jersey that I'd had for the couple of years before. So I was like sad about that. And I was just frustrated. And I had a really bad year in 14. I mean, long story short, I had health issues. I took Accutane to try to clear up my acne, and it really messed me up like health wise. So I had a lot of like personal stuff going on with like my health. So I wasn't able to train properly. I wasn't able to do everything that I wanted to do. So it was kind of like, it all came out after that race. Like, you know how it is, like when things in life aren't going well, and then you have a bad race, it's almost like it opens the floodgates and like everything comes out. So I was up all night,
just falling apart.
like the sun tomorrow. I was up all night the night before talking to my mom, and she's like, just go out tomorrow and you have 4 laps and just do your best. Just do your best. And I ended up having like 3.5 perfect laps. And but it was kind of a good, it's one of those things where you got to do it to know you can.
Yeah.
And I did it. So I knew I could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you start in quarters or start in 8ths? Where did you start in that one? Because it was different, that format that year.
I swear, I mean, I was racing for so long. The format has changed 6 times.
I think we started in 8ths.
If you're automatic,
yeah, if you're top 16, you don't have to do the 3 motos. Then you get like a 10-minute, 15-minute warm up. So we did the warm up, then we just go right into 8ths and meet up with guys who came from motos. Yeah.
I mean, we format so many times I lose track, but I think we started in quarters.
That was a hot format. Yeah, it's go time, baby.
Yeah. I do got to ask about that race that I think everyone likes to debate in their own, that second turn with you and Sam. People like to talk about that because it was one of the craziest moments in Worlds. Like at the time, it was the craziest moment. What was your feeling in that turn? Did you overshoot the jump going in? Did Sam bump you? Like how do you remember any of it?
Yeah, no, I remember. So here's what I'll say about it. Like, fantastic move by Sam. It was there and he made a great move. And if the roles were reversed, I would like to think that I would try to make the same move.
Yeah.
You know, the options on the table, go do it. With that said, in the quarter, I forget who it was.
Liam.
Yeah, who was the French guy?
Oh, Gobert. Sorry. Godet.
UCI did not put a cone or any sort of marking to say, hey, this is where you can't go farther. And so all of a sudden on the last jump, the straight went from 4 or 5 meters wide to 10 meters wide. Right?
Yeah.
So Godet does it to Liam and blows Liam up, and Liam's pissed, right? He's justifiably upset.
Yeah.
Same exact thing kind of happened in the main. Can't get mad at Sam for doing it. Move was there. Great move.
Yeah.
Wish there would have been a cone to, block the inside off. Sure. Yeah. But I can't get mad at him. So what happened was I saw him coming. I saw him moving to the inside to do it. So then I panicked, tried to jump as far to the inside as I could to block him off, but it was too late. And so I was off balance and it just kind of messed me up. And I tried to jump 10 feet to the inside to cover the move off. And I ended up crashing myself because I was trying to do a move that I should never have tried to make. So bummer, 2 turns away from a world title and all that, but credit to him for making the move.
Although devastating, like it sounds like that race was kind of a turning point for you moving forward.
Yep. I mean, I imagine it would have been a turning point even had I won. But that wasn't the first time that somebody cut a corner and cost me a title in my career.
Was there one before that? Am I missing? What am I missing?
Me and him were talking about it yesterday. It wasn't as egregious.
Oh, that one,
yeah. But, all good. It's one of those things where everything turned out fine. that not happen, maybe I don't win in Rio. You never know.
Yeah.
Can't get too mad about it, but credit to him for a great move.
Yeah. Oh, we missed one thing I wanted to ask about was 2013. I think it was 2013 Rebel Revolution, or was that 2014? Was it 20? I know there's two of them. Was it 20?
It was 13. I'm gonna run to the little boys' room real quick, and then
do that. Me and Tori will talk amongst ourselves.
Perfect. You guys know about golf?
You got a pro gate piss break
or Canada or whatever.
Tori, what's a race you look back on with Connor that's one that you remember? I think I know one, but what's one you remember that's like, shit, that was a sick race?
Rock Hill 2015 stands out to me just because at the time we were both working with PH. So we had spent a lot of time together, like that's the whole year leading into that race. And Connor had a few bad races at the beginning of the year, did make some World Cup mains, and I was coming back from ankle reconstruction. So I was kind of just getting back into things. Just made the main like the couple weeks before in Argentina. Then we had gone for, I think, a week or 2 weeks before Rock Hill. Me, him, and PH went to Rock Hill to train. So we were training on the track, and then we went and stayed at Connor's grandparents in Georgia like the weekend before. And then obviously it was a crazy fucking wild rain race, and it was wild and just like a World Cup. No one had raced before, and so we both ended up on the podium. So to get second and third, like we did a huge hug at the finish line. We're on the podium with Maris. It was awesome. So to not even just the race itself, but just the whole buildup of us training together and then staying together and fishing at his grandparents' house in Georgia, then both getting on the
great white whale.
That's probably like one of my favorite races that I ever did, especially with Connor. It was just really cool. Good payoff.
Yeah. So he's I didn't hear the whole thing. I'm sorry, I have the bladder of a 5-year-old.
Favorite, he said, like, memorable race we did together.
Yep. So and I could tell it was Rock Hill 2015, and Tori snipped me at the line by about half an inch, costing me. If I get second, I get third in the series, which gets you funding from USA Cycling. He snipped me at the finish line, making me bounce down to fourth in the series. So I missed the podium bonus. I missed the funding from USA Cycling, and I missed a third in the championship.
That's just real tough.
So for him, for me, it wasn't so much one of my favorites.
So remember on the way to the after party, we're with H, and then all of a sudden you start adding up. You're like, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
I remember hearing that. That's crazy.
Yeah. So sorry about the bathroom break.
It's all part of the show.
Progate piss break, I guess, is what you call it.
Yeah.
So to answer Rebel Revolution, that race was rad. So in 2012, that race happened right after London.
I'll do it too.
And I was not in like a super good mood right after London. But in 2013, I wanted to go. And I think it was like 2 weeks after New Zealand.
Okay, yeah.
New Zealand, which was by far like one of the sketchiest supercross tracks we've ever raced in that tiny little arena.
That had to be the most dangerous first turn, jump into the first turn. I can't believe when watching back they allowed that.
Me either. But I remember I raced a small gear there. I raced a 4115, real small gear, because you pedal down the hill and then you didn't pedal again to the first turn. Just pumped a roller and then just rolled because you couldn't go any quicker. So I put a really small gear on to race that race. And then I remember I got home and I was pretty pissed because I was disappointed with how the worlds went with that first turn. And so I left my bike in the bag for 2 weeks. Like I didn't touch it. And so I show up at Red Bull Revolution on the fastest first straight we ever raced. And I have a tiny gear on my bike.
the 12 meter hill of everything.
Hill. And I've got a tiny little gear on my bike. And if you watch the video, it's kind of funny in the main, like I stopped pedaling because I can't keep up with it. Like I land on the first jump, take a pedal, and then I just cruise because I couldn't keep up with the speed that. I mean, we're in Berlin, Germany. It's not like, and we're at a Red Bull Revolution. Not like we can just roll over to Tangent and grab some gears. Like you don't have it.
The track was so gnarly.
And my God. And so my favorite stuff about that race was we show up, and Red Bull had done like a really nice boat tour of Germany or Berlin. Remember that boat tour we did? And me and Tori, we like to party, so we're drinking some beers. It's Red Bull, and like for their events, typically, maybe not BMX racing, but other events, people like to have a good time, right? They're not talking about their kink times and, how many watts they're putting out at the skateboarding parties,
Yeah.
So we start drinking, and me and Tori just absolutely peer pressure everybody. Remember this? Like there was a few people who didn't want to. We're like, come on, let's have a good time. Let's have a good time. Next day, the track is open from like 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. It was like the most relaxed practice ever. Like
it was like 2 days wide open. You just do
not an official in sight. Just go ride whenever you guys want. Right? we mosey on out there like 2 p.m. the next day, do a few laps, get the track dialed in.
It was a fun event.
It was a cool event.
Yeah, it was a cool one.
Yeah.
But I also was very motivated because in 2011, when I left free agent, so free agent at the time was with Rockstars, like a team deal.
Yeah.
And so then after that kind of fell through and I was going to go with Chase, I actually was talking to Red Bull. And Red Bull was going to pick between 2 athletes at the time. The guy flew to my house and sent me drinks and basically had told me, like, you're going to be a Red Bull athlete. Didn't know this, but at the time he was also talking to another person and trying to figure out who he wanted to be the Red Bull guy. So Chase originally in 2011 was going to be green. And I said, no, green. We got to be something because I'm going to be a Red Bull guy. We got to be a different color. That's why Chase went blue. And that's why for like a lot of those years, especially in the early days, Chase was blue because I was a Red Bull guy. Show up at the Chula World Cup in 2011 and a different athlete is wearing a Red Bull helmet. And so I was never told like you didn't get chosen. That was all I found out. And so it was very motivating and I, used it as something to think about when I would sprint or gym or whatever. And so then I went to this Red Bull Revolution and my whole mindset was, I want to win this race to prove to you that you made the wrong decision and put a monster claw on the top podium. And so when race was awesome, had a lot of fun, ended up getting the win. And Sean Gain at the time, he was like my roommate who I was traveling with. And I'd given him my monster hat and bottle before the main. I said, hey, if I win, will you run this over to me, for the interviews and the podium? And he's like, yeah, no worries. So before we get to the podium, I'm like looking around, I can't see him anywhere. And there's a guy in the front row who's got like a gas station janky monster hat. Like it's a total just fake, gas station monster hat. And I'm like, I look at him, I'm like, hey, can I have your monster hat? Like, I'll give you my jersey. And the guy's like, okay. Because in your monster contract,
the guy's like, I'm on the podium.
In your contract, you have to have a hat in the podium. Like that is rule number 1.
Yeah.
And I just did a Red Bull event. Like, and if I don't have my monster hat in the podium, like that is not going to be good. So the dude gives me his hat. I put his hat on. We're spraying champagne. I hand him back his hat. It's absolutely drenched. Absolutely drenched. Get back to the pit. And I said, Sean, where were you? He's like, the Red Bull people wouldn't let me through because they knew I was trying to bring you your monster stuff. And
no way.
Him
so brutal. It's so brutal.
Yeah.
It's so brutal.
So that was pretty funny. And then they paid you in cash. You remember this? You got paid cash, euros.
Straight cash?
Straight cash. Prize money for winning that race was 10,000 euros. And they paid me in 500 bills, which I didn't even know was a thing.
Drug dealer. So
I'm just sitting there holding dollar bills, like a stack of them. Flying back to America, it is you're not supposed to bring in over $10,000, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what do I do here? Like I've got
like $12.50.
I've got like $12.50, right? So I hand Sean Gain, I hand him a couple $1,000 and I said, hey, we'll split this up. So I'm like, all right, cool. So if we get checked or whatever, he's got a little bit, I've got a little bit, whatever. We're in line at customs. The dude in front of me is like part of Tom Ritz's team, like track builders.
Okay.
He's at customs, and the customs person's like, oh, what were you doing in Germany? Oh, I was at an event. It was a bike event. That guy won right there. He like points me out. So I'm sitting there. I'm sitting there just like, oh boy.
Here we go.
Then the first question is like, did you make any money? And I was like, yeah, but my sponsors pay me. It's all through my American bank accounts. Monster, my bike sponsor, they're all going to pay me through my bank account. Meanwhile, I'm sweating bullets. So then we get through and, all good, no issues. And then we get home. And then when I get home, Monster had sent me a little bonus check. And it was not in the contract or anything. And said, hey, thanks for winning the Red Bull race. Here you go.
No way. That's awesome.
That was a good day.
That's a good slap in the face to them too after that whole experience.
That was a good day.
Yeah. That's some big dick energy after. I'd be posting all about that. Oh yeah, how'd Corbin do?
You get all back.
Sean Kane, I think he gave it back.
He didn't slide a quick 500 in his pocket.
Yeah, just take one bill. It's $500. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. 2015. I mean, we talked about one of the moments I wanted to talk about, which was that Rock Hill race with you two. What was that? What was that year like for you? Like knowing the Olympics is the next year. Is it all just kind of focused around just getting prepped for 2016?
It really wasn't. And
for the ABA title that year.
And I think that's something that I actually disagree personally. Everybody's got their own opinion, but something that I disagree with is that every race for 4 years does not have to be about the Olympics. Like you can try to win races along the way. Like you can try to win a world championship or a World Cup title, or, maybe not everybody's up for a win. Try to get top 10 in the series. Try to, tick individual goals along the way. And like winning other races is still a big deal. Like obviously winning the Olympics is the biggest, but other races are a big deal too. So going into 15, like the whole mindset for me was I wanted to win a title, right? At this point I had won the World Cup title, but like I had the Worlds thing happen. I had come up short a couple times in the ABA, and I just wanted to win a title, right? Win a bunch of races that year. I win a Euro round in Zolder. I win that a couple of nationals, a bunch of stuff like that. I think I go into the Grands with the points lead for the first time. And this was an epic battle, like all time. It's me, Joris, and Sam, all within 80 points of each other. Literally, whoever beats the other gets the title.
This is one of the most exciting years, I think, for that race. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Like, we all went into the Grands 8 wins apiece. So we each had 8. I don't think anybody else won a race that year. If they did, maybe it was once or twice, but we just were literally evenly splitting wins every weekend. And then going into the Grands doesn't fall my way. I win the Rock, but I don't win the Grands. And, I was really devastated. I remember PH at the time, I was like crying, after the Grands, tearing up a little bit. And I was like, am I ever going to win a championship? And he's like, if you keep working, you keep doing anything, you will get one. I promise you will get one. And after that is when the focus kind of started to shift to the Olympics. And in my opinion, the best way to prep for the Olympics is to try to win other races along the way, because you're still training. It's not like the training disappears. It's not like they're like, this training is for the Olympics. Like, and then 15 was like good year, but it was a tough year at the same time.
16, you had a wild ride too, especially the first few months of the year. Talk us through what that was like. Because obviously you started well at Argentina, second in racing, got on the podium. Like you'd done well in Oldsmar at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden you had a crash in Manchester, and the world gets turned upside down a bit.
So 15 was good. Like World Cup podiums, I almost got third in the series. Nudge, nudge.
Great for
going into the Grands with the points lead. I won a bunch of races. Like it was a good year overall. Going into 16, I was like, perfect. Like that was a good year. Couple of adjustments, a little bit of improvement, and I can turn good into great, and I can win some races. First race of the year was in Oldsmar, and I got like second or third on the national race day. And then I took the second day off because Sunday was national champs, and that was an Olympic qualifying event for us. So I skipped the second day. So I got like second or third the first day, and then I won the national championships the second day. So start the year off hot. Good work.
Yeah.
Couple weeks after that was Argentina. I got second at the race in Argentina. I was in lane 1 in the main, right? So and Corbin just had a great start from the outside, ended up hole shotting. But when you're in lane 1 in the main, that means you did things well all day, right? And then you get seconds. That's a good day overall. Good work again. Couple weeks after that, go to Manchester, and we're prepping for the next race, and I shattered my wrist. So it was like everything was like trending upwards. It was really, really good. Everything was going the way you want it to go, and then that happens, and obviously that's not what you want.
Did you find it hard to train after that? Did you feel like, oh man, I don't have a shot now at this? Or so the break was really bad, and like without getting into the boring details, like it wasn't just your run-of-the-mill break. I needed a bone graft. I needed 5 screws. Like it was a whole process. I wasn't going to be able to race the trials, and I was going to have to rely on getting the coach's pick. So like
it's all out of my control. And as an athlete, you want to control everything. And so now none of this is in my control. Like I'm watching races and I'm rooting against people, which is not like a fun thing to do. You're like,
natural. It's natural.
You're like,
I mean,
hit the gate, please hit the gate. Like, so you can succeed, but that's not like a good mindset or experience to have.
No.
So, going into the Worlds that year in Colombia, I had a piece of paper with all the things that had to happen, because there was different rules and stuff that year where if you podiumed at the Worlds, you were on the team, no questions asked. So if
Automatic spot. Yeah.
it went 1, 2, 3, that was the team. Even if there was somebody who won every other race and got 4th at the Worlds, 1, 2, 3 were on the team. Oh, America does not have the best history of how they choose their teams. They do not have a great history on how they choose their teams. So I'm looking at this and I've got the numbers. If Corbin gets this and Nick gets this, if Corbin gets this and Nick gets this, and I'm watching this race with the spreadsheet in front of me. And Corbin ended up sliding out in the semi. If Corbin doesn't slide out in the semi and makes the main, good chance I don't go to the Olympics, because Nick got 3rd, which is an automatic. Corbin missed winning the points by just like a couple of points. So if he finishes that lap and makes the main and gets 8th, he gets 8th, Nick gets 3rd, they're your 1 and 2 team right there. So now there's just the trials winner, and I can't race the trials. So, somebody else would have been on the team. So then that happens. It ends up working out like very dangerously, but it ends up being okay. So now I'm watching the trials, and it's basically, if Corbin wins, I'll get the pick. Anybody else wins.
I think this is the first time in your life you're cheering for Corbin.
First time in my life.
Can I get a Gatorade, Corbin?
Corbin's been cutting me off since we were 8 years old, right? Like, I don't think I've ever once rooted for this dude my entire life. Like, I know him.
Come on, buddy, your time to shine.
I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a fantastic rider, one of the most talented bike riders I've ever seen. Never rooted for the guy ever. On this day, like, I was texting Greg Romero, was coach at the time, helping him choose gates. Seriously, I was like, have you thought about putting Corbin in this gate? Like, me and Greg were like talking, because Greg knew that I was like, I'm not going to try to sabotage this. Yeah. Like, I'm a good resource here. Like, I'm rooting for Corbin as much as anybody else is.
How nervous were you on the morning of the trials when you woke up?
I was wildly nervous, but again, I have no control.
Yeah,
like,
of course,
I'm just like, oh, turn the TV on and hope for the best,
Yeah.
So he ends up winning. I get a phone call. They're like, hey, we want to pick you, but can you ride? And
fuck yeah, I can ride.
And like, bone's still broken. It's I'm not good, but I'm like, yep, let's go. So snatch some Advil and grit my teeth and start riding, and I end up getting that pick. But I mean, it was, so at this point in time, I'd been to 2 Olympics, and not a single time was the process to make the team smooth.
No, not even a little bit.
Especially like the US, there's so many riders, it's always going to be tough. Like, it's doesn't matter what you've done, it's always going to be a hard team to make.
Yep. I mean, in 16, it was pretty clear. There wasn't any other Americans who had even made a main. Yeah. So it was very clear on those.
But it's like Corbin hits the gate, Barry wins the trials, and then, you're fucked.
Yep.
Yeah. Crazy.
Or like, maybe they still would have picked me,
but it would have been ugly.
But think about the additional baggage that I would have had to deal with, or Corbin, whoever they picked. Think about the additional baggage they would have had to deal with everybody being like, you made the wrong choice. And basically you either win and you're proving that they made the right choice, or if you get 4th, like, then you shouldn't have picked him. And it's like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so no one should have to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that was good times.
So there was relief. Okay. Made the team. What was the prep like? What was your kind of mental approach like heading into the Olympics? Because I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear what it was like.
Yeah.
In the build up and everything.
It was different. So I had actually, I had changed coaches in like April of that year. So Tori and I had shared a coach for 2014, 15, and early 16. And I hope, stop me if you want me to stop. I hope I don't give too much detail here. The funding for that coach was provided via Tori. And so I was just kind of tagging along, right? Just like hanging out. So with that, it meant that Tori was priority number 1, and that I was just kind of going to, get the extra time that was going to be around. And so at the Olympics, Tori was obviously going to be priority number 1. And I understood that. And I had no issues with that whatsoever. But at the same time, I'm trying to win.
Yeah.
Right? So I want somebody who's going to be able to help me win. And not that, PH is awesome. I'm sure PH, his dream would have been a 1-2 finish in any order. And he genuinely would have been happy no matter what. But there's politics and there's federations and there's a lot more that goes into it. So I was like, I'm not going to go to the Olympics with a coach who like, maybe he'll throw me a scrap here and there when he's able to.
Yeah.
So I ended up changing back to my original coach who I had worked with in like 10, 11, 12, Sean Dwight in, I think April of that year.
Did you change later? Wasn't it like early summer or no?
It was whenever I had like made the team. It was like once I had kind of gotten to the point where like I knew I was going to make the team.
Okay. Yeah.
That was when I made the change. And then going into that prep, it was just like 8 weeks of just 100% commitment and focus. But it was with a different perspective because now I was just happy to have a shot instead of
it's grateful probably.
Yeah. Like I wanted to win, but like I was just happy to be there. And so I think from a mindset going into the race, it just made things a little easier because I was just like, there's days where I didn't think I was going to get this chance. Like there was days where I would skip training because I was too stressed out and I was like, sad and bummed and didn't think it was going to work. So it was just a different perspective of just like appreciation alongside the hard work and the commitment and the dedication. And Trent and myself had an amazing prep because he was in the same boat. He cracked his collarbone in Papendal. So he and then Matt Cameron and him were kind of going for the spot. And then Matt didn't quite do enough. So Trent and I were just like high-fiving, like, we're made it. We're happy to be here. So we ended up having a great prep. It was a hell of a lot of fun that summer too, which I think makes a big difference. Like we worked really hard, but we had a good time as well. And so going into the race, I felt like, hey, I have a shot, right? Like in London, I felt like I had one of the best shots. Like there's probably 2-3 guys that you're saying like one of these 3 is probably going to win. Mm-hmm. In Rio, I don't think I would have been like on the short list of 3. I'd have maybe been like more like 4, 5, 6. Like I had a chance if a few things fall your way, but it wasn't like the same pressure as in London. It was basically like anything short of a win is going to be a failure. So it was just a bit different mindset going in and also just a bit easier. And then going into the race, I just also had learned in London, like it doesn't matter if you win everything, just get to the main and then that's what matters. And like in London, I went like I think 1, 1, 1, 4, 1, 1 before the main. And like then I got 7th and now I didn't get anything. So it doesn't matter if you go 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 1, start fresh, then you win.
Yeah.
So like a different like mindset of understanding like what it takes to get there too.
How's your mindset different going to the main in Rio as opposed to London? Because obviously you've been through it before, and maybe what was different with Rio and London in that moment?
For me, and not just in the main, but overall, like the thing that bothered me most with London is that I couldn't look myself in the mirror and be like, you did your best, because I felt like I left some on the table. And like, if I could transport my brain now into my London 2012 body, I think I'd win that race, or at least have a much better chance to win that race.
Yeah.
But now I've got like a more mature brain. So now I understand like what's going on in that Rio main. I whether I get first or I get 4th, I want to just know I did everything, because there's nothing worse than sitting around for the next 4 years. Didn't realize the time it'd be 5. Nothing worse than sitting around for 4 years thinking I should have done something different. And so I wanted to leave it all out there and have no regrets whatsoever at the end of this day, whatever place that
sounds like you rode more freely.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still wanted to win. Like that's still a goal, but it was just a different thought process versus in London. It was like, I'm going to win. The party's going to be epic. In Rio, it was like, I really just want to feel good about today. Yeah. It was a bit more mature.
Yeah. Yeah. Putting so much pressure on yourself probably too.
Yeah. Well, there's enough pressure being applied everywhere else.
Totally. Racing too. Racing in Rio was nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hectic. I mean, one of the laps, I think you almost landed backwards on that second jump.
Yeah, it's weird. So I've got three massive Olympic moments, and all of them involve Tuan Van Gent. So the gate in London, he hits me from behind on the second double on the first straight in Rio. In that third semi, he hits me from behind and like causes me to go like that, and I land sideways. And then in Tokyo, he runs over my dead body. So
unreal.
I don't blame him for, but the other two,
We're in the same simulator.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were
Our
in the same
semi was
simulator.
absolutely stacked.
It was
Sam.
It was.
Yeah.
Sam, me, you, Neat Kimmin, Twan Van Gent, Trent Jones, Gonzalo,
Jefferson Milano.
and Jefferson Milano. But there's about 26 world championships in that main event.
That was yeah.
Crazy.
Or semi.
What pick did you guys have going to the final?
5 and 6.
Yeah.
Was it like just next like
I think Nick
Oh,
picked,
7. Nick picked 8.
Nick picked ahead of us. We picked 8. So then
Okay.
I would have had 6. So I had choice of 5, 6, 7. And my starts weren't good. So I was like, I'm just gonna go inside 4 and whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, that's one of the questions I wanted to ask because I mean, strategically, the two guys on either side of you, Connor, were two guys that are more considered track speed guys at the time, like Tori and Carlos are the guys.
He just admitted it, so I had no problem
My
saying that.
starts weren't good. Like especially in Rio, they weren't very good. So like I wasn't getting.
I got into that gate and I felt 100% confident that if I got a decent start, I'm fine.
Yeah.
And like there's a big difference of mindset when you get in the gate and you're in between Vincent Pelluard and Liam. Like those dudes are gonna absolutely have savage first couple of cranks versus you just feel like, all right, cool. If I do my job, I will at a minimum be clean and be able to go. And so I think that was helpful because I wasn't stressing on that.
Yeah.
Neek's in 8. I know Neek's coming over, and like by the time, like his idea is to be in lane 6, like in front of me by the first jump. Like that's his plan. Right? Yeah. You know that's coming.
Yeah.
So it's not like necessarily, and everybody's good too, right? Like just Tori or Carlos could pop one off. Like it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just felt like if I do my thing, I'll be okay.
And then boom, the kid comes up clutch with just one of the best starts around.
There's only a few like you know how when you remember a race, you have like a couple of like brief blips. I remember hitting the bottom of the hill and seeing nothing. And like that's the great feeling that you can have. It's like, especially when you're in the middle of the gate, like you just see nothing. And I just remember like seeing nothing and being like, sweet. Great start, but I was on the outside and Nick was able to be at the inside, and Nick had a great start. He shut down Anthony and Sam and or whatever happened over there, and ended up beating me to the turn because he was on the inside. And so exiting the first turn, you're sitting in second, and it's like a really tough position to be in because it's like, okay, do I just play it safe here and aim for a second place? Like a silver medal is still pretty dang good. Or do I try to make the pass? It's like Mike Day in 08.
Yeah.
Like, right, going to that second turn. It's like, do you take the second or do you roll the dice on either maybe a goal, but maybe a nothing, right? And it's even a level further because it's your teammate, right? So imagine the newspaper headlines if we're 1 and 2 and then the second turn comes, I blow them up and we end up getting 7th and 8th. Oh. And it's like America goes from gold, silver, sweep to nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like a bit of a tough spot to be in as you exit that first turn. And you're trying to have all these thought processes while going 40 miles an hour and jumping 40 feet jumps. They try to figure out like, what do I do? Like it was a whole thing.
That's wild. And then obviously the craziness of the lap was something that I think no one will forget. Like Nick down the second straight, your jump into the second turn, everything about it was just a wild ride.
Angle, but if you like pause it as you exit the turn, Nick's like on the far right of the track, and then by like the second jump, he's on the far left of the track. Second straight.
I think. Yeah.
On the far right, and then he just cut straight back. And I don't know if he was doing it because that's where he wanted to be, or if because he knew I was behind him and was trying to get in front of me. And that's what caused me to kind of like get scared and like make that mistake in the second turn, is because he just kept coming at me like that. And him and I are both just lucky that Sam didn't just gun down the inside of that second straight, because there was a huge hole there if he wanted to take it. But it was wild. And then
I was going to say, did you plan on setting him up in the third straight?
I knew that like once you came into the last turn, like nothing was going to happen other than like sending somebody flying. Like you're not going to like a nice move in the last turn. Last straight's too basic. It's a few rolls, like there's not going to be any moves made. So I kind of knew, and I wasn't thinking this in the race, but I knew going into the race, like if a move is going to be made, it has to be made by the end of the third straight. Like you're not going to do anything past that. Carlos will probably agree or disagree with that. But in general, like I thought I had a mistake. So I didn't know what was going on. And I just like, I'm going to try to hit his third straight as good as possible. And no disrespect to any of the competitors, but I like my odds when it comes to track speed at that point in time.
Mhm.
I thought I had a shot of potentially pulling up and pulling by. So that was the thought process.
Mhm.
And then he ends up making the mistake, slowing himself down, which just makes my job easier. We don't have to contest. It doesn't turn into any battle into the last turn or anything. And then, I'll never forget the moment in the last turn where you have a brief moment when you realize you're
I'm
winning.
gonna win. Yeah.
It's like, holy
That's what I
shit.
was gonna, yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask you. What happens after that last turn coming down the last straight? Does the smile already on your face?
And I had taken the entire weekend.
Really?
Yep. So I end up not taking the same line. And I ended up having one uneven roller at the end, like wheelie off the last roller, because it's like I didn't know where I was.
Bucket, just sprint, baby.
Yeah.
Give it to me.
And like the rollers, it was like easy. But yeah, got across the line, and then it was more shock than anything. Like it was more just like, oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
it's not so much that I didn't believe that I could do it, but it's like you think about that moment every day for 10 years. And so then when it happens, it's almost like, is this actually happening? Is this like what?
Holy crap, I did it.
And so my initial reaction was just to go and celebrate with the people that had helped me out, like my coach Sean and Trent Jones and Jamie Staff and Joey Bradford, like people that were a part of it, and just enjoy the moment with them. And it was a really cool thing. The worst was like celebrating with Nick and then watching the whole thing unfold. Like, that was wild.
That's actually
That hurts.
the worst case scenario, honestly. Like we've talked about it in the past, but I can't think of a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
What was it like dealing with? So obviously, when you win a race like that or the Olympics, there's so much media and everything, like especially like right after. Like, what was that kind of whirlwind?
So immediately after, you go and you change in your outfit, and then you go and you do your medal ceremony and all that, and then from there you go directly to a press conference. And I'll never forget this. Me, Yeli, and Carlos were sitting there with Elise, Mariana, and Stephanie. 98% of the questions were at Mariana. Like we were up for an hour. Like everybody else just sat there. Like everybody just kept, and Mariana, like being, the amazing person that she is, she said, "Hey, ask everybody else
so
some
gracious."
questions.
Yeah.
Like she was encouraging the media to ask other people
She
questions.
basically had a home race there. There's so many Colombian.
And me and
so
Yeli
much.
were just sitting there laughing about how like no one cares. Like we're just laughing about that. And then from there, if as an American, you're shuttled immediately to like the media corral for like all the American media. And so it's like a few hours of that. And then we went to the Team USA or America House or whatever you call it. We have like a ceremony where we could give Order of Ethos, which is what they call it, but it's like a thank you medal to somebody who helped you. So we did that. And then I actually didn't drink that night. Or I didn't get drunk. I had maybe had a beer, but I didn't drink because I wanted to enjoy it and remember it. I wanted to like really soak it all in. And I was like, I live in Vegas. Like I'll have plenty of time to drink when I get home. So I stayed sober that night and just enjoyed the moment. And my dad was there and Sean was there. And one really cool thing that I'll never forget is we had a coat check. And when we checked the coat check, they gave me my number for the coat check. And I didn't check the coat, obviously. I checked like my helmet and bike, like whatever I had with me. And the number was 88.
No way.
And I thought that was really cool because, Kyle was a part of my younger career. My coach had helped Kyle and kind of a lot of the training Kyle had helped develop. And it was kind of a really cool way. Like, I'm not a huge, like, I don't know what I believe. I don't even know. I just, whatever. But one of those things, like maybe it was his way from beyond to say, congratulations, like, coat check number 88. Like it was just kind of a really cool moment.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then I'll never forget. I remember it was like 5 a.m. and I'm walking back into the Olympic Village. And
I did it.
And it's just like, holy shit. Like, but on the downside too, in London and in Rio, BMX was the last day of the Olympics. We had no time.
That does kind of suck. You can't watch
time.
anything.
And so like you
closing was like 2 days later.
You do the closing, go home.
Yeah.
So you don't really get like a lot of time to like go see other events or enjoy it. I mean, decent problem. Oh, darn, I'm at the Olympics. I don't have too much time. Like
No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah.
But
would have been nice to do it like obviously first week and then you can just enjoy it for the next week.
I wouldn't have mind spending a week at Copacabana.
Seriously, I was rooming with some rowers and they were done like right away. For 10 days, they just partied every single night, went to events. Oh yeah. All they did was like they'd go and eat, they'd go like watch events, they'd go out and they just did it every day.
Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that'd be
my
so
God.
fun. Us, we're just like going to bed at 9 p.m. second to last day of the Olympics.
Yeah. I'll never forget too, another funny story with the Olympics the night before. So after the first day of racing, it was a damn war zone out there, James.
Insane.
It was like you got to the end of the day and it was just like,
We made it.
and I remember the moto that I was in was like Anthony Dean, Corbin, Bodie Turner, I think were the guys that made it out. And I want to say it was maybe like Kyle Evans and somebody else, Yoshi or something didn't. But the four guys who made it, me, Anthony, Corbin, and Bodie, all raced on the American circuit. So we all kind of knew to race each other. Like there's a different style of racing at the USA BMX round. It's more of a let's all survive because there's another race tomorrow and then another race next weekend, another race next weekend.
Yeah. We
were the only moto that had no crashes.
That's crazy because you like you said, it was crazy out there.
We were very respectful. Nobody did anything like questionable. Everybody was giving each other space out there. And we ended up all making it all good. But then like afterwards, it was a damn war zone. And I remember sitting there with Trent Jones and Sean and just like all of us just processing. Like we just needed a second to process what had just happened. And it was the night before Olympics. And I was like, fuck it. I went and got like 2-3 slices of pizza, like just the greasiest, worst meal, like not what you're supposed to eat tonight. I'm like, I'm emotionally eating the night before the Olympics. Me and Trent go back to the Team USA house. We're watching like track and field or something, eating Pop-Tarts, like really not what you're supposed to be. And then Sean walks in, he's like, boys want to see the semi tomorrow? And then Trent like, fuck it, let's do it. Then we look, we're just laughing at each other because we just talked about it. It's Sam, Tori, Neek, Twan, me, Trent, like just a murderer's row. And we're just like, we might die tomorrow. Let's enjoy it. It's like one of my fondest memories.
Oh man.
So much relief too, just making it through the first day. Just because like of course, like you want to make the main have a shot at a medal the second day, but you don't want to not race the second day. Like you don't want to go out early the first day. Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have minded going out the first day in Tokyo.
Yeah, that would have helped.
Yeah, we'll go again.
So like obviously I think a lot of people would like to know too, like what's it like? Obviously you win the Olympics and not only do you win the race, but there's so much that goes with it. Because it's not obviously like other races, you're in a spotlight, but especially with Olympic gold medal, like you're like the guy in the sport. So what was that transition like the next, I mean, cause you got to deal with that obviously for years after.
Yeah. So it was, you know, it's awesome. It's an amazing thing to have to deal with, right? Like one thing I do want to make sure I shout out, one of the coolest things was about a week later, Maris sent me a really nice message. And I thought that was really cool because he obviously had a rough go in Rio and didn't perform how he would have liked to perform. And he had won the previous two. So now there was not only Maris is the only Olympic champion. Now somebody else had one.
True, because he had two at that time. Yes, he's the only one.
Yeah. And teammates, like I'd known this guy since 2009, and he knew me when I was a little annoying ankle biter who was following him around in the free agent pit, asking him, you know, Cytomax. And
got some fast twitch.
Yeah. So he sent me a nice message, which I thought was really cool. So I want to make sure I give him a little shout out for that. But you know, you get home and I think a lot of it depends on where you're from. So Mariana and Maris's experience would be very different than mine. You know, in America, we won, and I only know these numbers because it was Rio, but we won 102 medals as a country in Rio. 42 of them were gold. So I was one of 42, and like Simone Biles won 5. So like in America, on the grand scale of things, like I'm not going to be on the Tonight Show. Like I'm not going to be front page news the same way Michael Phelps and Simone Biles and people like that will be. But in my hometown, you know, it's a bit of media and things going on. And then also what I found, you know, when you walk into a room and you tell somebody that you're an Olympic gold medalist, like that means something. You could say like, oh, I won the Red Bull Revolution and I'm a USA BMX #1 pro. And everyone's like, oh, cool. Like, what do you do? Like side note, but like Laura, I remember from 15 did an article interviewing people. Would you rather have 3 world titles or an Olympic gold medal? And I don't want to speak for anyone, but I guarantee you, if you sat down in this room and it was me, Neek, Maris, and Caroline Jasone, Mariana, and Bethany, every one of us would take the gold medal because we know what that's like. And all of them, except me, have a world title too. And so they've experienced both. And like, so when you've experienced both, you just know how much more that weight carries. And it's opened a lot of doors. You know, obviously I live in America. It's not like I'm set for life on a pension or something like that. You know, but it has opened a lot of doors and done a lot of really cool things. But more than anything, the biggest thing that I took away from it is it was the ultimate way to say thank you to everybody around me. Like my mom and dad, like as you get older, you realize that your mom and dad probably don't want to spend every waking moment at the BMX track. You realize your dad probably doesn't want to spend his Christmas bonus on carbon forks. You realize that like maybe they didn't want to spend Thanksgiving in Tulsa for the 8th year in a row. Right. You know, you realize that as you get older.
It's a good way to look at it.
And not just them, but like, you know, whether it's my coaches as a kid or even, you know, Sean, who spent the entire summer away from home in America to help me train, or Trent Jones, who could have been upset about not making it out of the semi, but instead he came and he supported me on the way into the main, or, you know, whatever it is. This is the ultimate way to say thank you and say, look, we did it. And like, I wish that there was a way that I could break the medal into 100 pieces and give a little piece of it to everybody who I felt helped me get it. But, you know, I hope that they know that they were a part of this and that it wouldn't have been possible without them, whether it's USA Cycling, whether it's Pete Deluski, Chris Hoffman, whoever it is. That's the coolest thing about it. And I'm rambling, but for the rest of my life, I will never, ever have a moment where I like, don't believe that if you put your mind to something, you can do it. Because I put my mind to something and I did it. So now it's like, not to say you don't have moments of self-doubt, not to say you don't have like, you know, days you're down on yourself, but it's like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah. What was the best party you went to in Vegas after that? Gotta ask.
So I think I had probably close to 4 weeks where I was not sober for a day. I was doing something, and it wasn't like I was by myself at home doing stuff. It was either I'm out and about, I was traveling. We went to Washington, D.C., to the White House. We went to California to celebrate with Pete. Like I did all sorts of different stuff. I was just bouncing around, just having a good time. But I would say there's two. The night I landed, so I got home, and I didn't do anything in Rio, really. Like I was pretty well behaved in Rio. I landed at the airport, and I got home, and it was pretty late, and I'm exhausted. Like emotionally, physically, just flew across the world, plus everything just happened. Like all I should probably do is go home and, you know, take a nap and take a bubble bath. But the boys, that like all my buddies I grew up with, called me, and they're like Balbs. And that was the bar that we always went to when we were younger, called Balboa Pizza. And we went to this place, and it's, you know, it's like a Tuesday night, 11, 12 at night. There's no one else in the bar, and we are burning this place down. Like me and like 10 dudes.
That's
like
the best.
boys.
That's the best.
We're on the jukebox playing, like they're playing like We Are the Champions and like, you know, all that stuff. We did a shot line where we lined up in a row, and the bartender lined up a shot for each of us, and we would take the medal, someone put it on, take a shot, pass it down.
No way. That's awesome.
You know, we just end up being in there all night. But it was like my buddies I grew up with, like the guys that when I was in high school, I told them like, I'm going to go to the Olympics one day. And they're like, yeah, whatever, Connor, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Those guys. So that was probably my favorite, just because it was like special with my closest friends. But then the coolest, like a club invited me to do it in Vegas, and it was like the full shebang. Like they shut the club down. The DJ shouted me out. They walked me in with these signs, and they gave everybody that was like part of my group a medal, like to wear. And like, it was a whole, we had no limit of how much we could spend. It was a whole thing.
Did it right.
We did. Oh yeah. I can go to the club again because it will never be that good.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Before we continue, boys, how much time do we have? I'm going to make sure we get the key things in here.
Yeah, we're good
for the next bit. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
All right, we're good. Okay.
We got an hour.
All right, we're good then. Where are we here? I got my whole timeline of stuff I want to, talk about. Moving on to 2017, was it tough to get motivated to kind of get back into racing again, like after the high of your life? To then it was just like, fuck, now I'm going to go race again. Or was it like, okay, now I get to race as the gold medalist?
No, it was hard. And when Nick took time off this year, I actually commend him for doing that, because I wish I would have. It's hard though, because when you win, you want to ride the high, and then everybody wants you, like your sponsors, your team, everybody around you's like, keep going. They want you to keep going, because right now it's like why you're hot. but you need a second to take a deep breath and decompress. Like you just work your whole life for something.
Yeah.
In other sports like swimming,
Like
they take a year. Like I'm gonna take a year off. Like I'm just gonna go vacationing for a year, and then I'll come back. But in BMX, it's like, you know, you take 2 weeks off, you're like, fuck, I'm losing my sprint. Like, you know, you don't want to take a day off. So I really wish that I would have taken more time off, because it really set me back the first few races in 2017, because it was not pretty. You know, I was not performing well. I didn't want to be there more than anything. It was also right after the pay got cut. So we're going from making decent money to making absolute joke of a purse. And so like you get third place at a USA BMX race with 50 riders and you make $400 after a $120 entry fee. And I just think, like, I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, this is stupid. But sometimes you got to go through that to get the fire back. Like you got to go to a race and get absolutely lit up to be like, all right, time to get my shit together. Yeah. So there was a few weeks where I got absolutely lit up, and then I decided like, all right, it's time to get my shit together. And then when that switch kind of flipped, that was the start of a run. So as much as it was hard to go through that, and I wish I didn't have to, it did serve a positive in the end, because it flipped the switch and it got me rolling. And then from like May or April of 2017 until early 2018, like I was on a roll.
Yeah. Obviously you went into that year, you were up for the World Cup title, won two World Cups. So didn't end up winning the World Cup title, but really good World Cup season. And you went into the Grands with, I'd say, your second shot at the title, right? After 2015?
I had outside shots in 12 and 13 and 14,
but
it was more like, I got to win and someone's got to not.
Right, but more so like, if I go and take care of business, I got a shot. So how'd you go into that one maybe a bit, you know, after going through it in 2015 and being upset, like after, like you mentioned, how'd you go in with that experience in mind?
So in 17, Worlds was in Rock Hill and I made the main, but I didn't do anything with it. And then go to the World Cup and I win 2 of the 6, but I had one rough day, which kind of cost me the points. And I didn't win the World Cup title. Lost it like by 1 position. I think if Sylvan gotten 4th.
And Sylvan, we're gonna preface this. Sylvan cut the second corner, on the main the second day, didn't get DQ.
White lines are just suggestions. They're just rough suggestions for all people.
Sylvan's probably listening, but he cut the turn. He did. He cut the turn.
It's all good. He got away with it. Check cleared. All good. But for everybody listening, a white line is a suggestion. It doesn't mean anything. So anyway, I went in after that World Cup and I was pissed. I was like, I'm not ending this year without winning something. And so I went into that Grands and like the whole prep and everything into that Grands with like a mindset that I'd never had before of just like, no was not an option. Like I was going to win this title or die trying. Like, and 2017 Grands is probably like, if I had to give like a top 3 best performances I ever had, like that would be possibly in the running for number 1. Like I was on fire. I was on fire. I'm gonna get a fire department out here because I was cooking.
It would have been interesting dynamic too, because obviously Joris is your teammate. He tries to blast you, I think, second main. Like obviously you probably knew something like that was coming.
I would do it too.
Yeah, exactly. So how's it racing a teammate like that?
You know, we wear the same jerseys, but in BMX, there's no team. Yeah. Right. Like if Joris wins, or, you know, if you're racing for your national team and the other person on your country wins, you're not like stoked because you don't care. You're no longer the best person on your team. Yeah. Right. And so for me, you know, going into that Grands, the only people that mathematically were going to win the title was me and Joris. If we didn't make the main, it was just whoever had the most points going in. So going into that, I knew it was going to be an absolute dogfight between the two of us, because there's nothing to lose. It wasn't like you make a mistake and you go from 2nd to 5th. Yeah, it was either you win or you don't win, and everyone was there. The whole Dutch team came, the whole French squad came, like the whole world that weekend.
Yeah.
Side note: I won the Rock and made $1,000. Max, my training partner, won A Pro and made $2,300.
This somehow got swept. Swept under the rug.
Yep.
Are you shitting me?
He made double what I made for winning A Pro, because A Pro is scaled, US and double A Pro is just straight $1,000, whether there's 5 riders or 500 riders.
Yeah, so that's somehow got on the rug.
Yep. And we were at dinner and we made Max buy dinner that night. We're like, why are you you made twice as much as me today. You buying dinner. But
That's crazy.
Going into that race, and that main event, you know, I'd done all the work. I got to this point, and I didn't want to lose. And so it didn't matter who it was against, whether it was against you, who's my friend, whether it was against Corbin, I'm battling 20 years, or Doris wearing the same jersey as me. I'm trying to win. And, you know, I can't fault anybody. And I think, you know, people need to understand, like, winning a title is significant money. I mean, it's including bonuses and all that. I mean, you're talking 30, 40 grand, right?
Yeah.
I'd put my thumb over a turn for 30, 40 grand. You know what I mean? Let alone another AA pro.
Yeah.
So, like, you got to expect that someone's going to do it to you. And so if someone's going to do it to you, like, you got to be ready to do it back to them if that's what it takes. Now, I'm not suggesting like wake up and say like, I'm going to send him today, but if that's, are you willing to do it? And so going in, I knew it was going to be a dogfight. I knew he'd be willing to do it. He knew I'd be willing to do it. And
Of course.
But at the same time, it ended up raising both of our levels the whole season because we're trying to one up the other, and ended up having a good race, and the whole thing kind of fell my way.
Where did that title rank compared to other races or stuff you've done?
It was a special one for me just because growing up in America, you see the USA BMX title every year. And you know, people can debate on its significance, you know, now versus 5 years ago versus 20 years ago. And like, maybe, you know, I could understand someone saying it's not as big as it was 20 years ago, but look at the list of people who have won it. It is a who's who, right? And you don't win that title randomly by accident. Like it's you got to be an absolute dog to win that title.
It's February to November. It's
this year's January to November.
Right.
But for me, just being an American, growing up in America, and then I was also the first American to win it since Randy Stumphauser in 2009. I like broke the streak.
Wow.
Not winning it. So it was a big one for me, and it meant a lot to tick that box.
Oh fuck! When I just lose my question there. Hold on. Continue for a sec.
Stuff. Real top-notch production.
Top notch. We're really just A1. What was I gonna? A major question here, T.
Do I interrupt you, James, or you got it?
No, go. You go for a sec.
So then obviously, like, especially racing the next year, like with the number one, now you're an Olympic champion, you got the USA BMX title, you hold like two of the very biggest titles, and then had a bad crash in Ultimate, I think, the following year, and kind of went through a rough period. So how was that to deal with? And then obviously move kind of through that and continue on in your career.
Yeah.
Because obviously at this point, you're like bang in your prime. Too.
Yeah. No, I think, you know, things might look a lot different on my career, and the results and all that had that not happened. So in Oldsmar, which was the first or second race of 2018, I win Saturday. And it's like, things are rolling, like coming off of last year, things are still rolling. It was a Supercross hill. Everyone's there. The French, Graf, I think some of the Dutchies, everyone was there. So
it was huge. It was huge.
So I win, you know, great job. Like, things are going good. Like, keep going. The next day is national championships. In between motos, I think it was second and third round, I got a flat tire on my rear tire. So I like panic, and then like I have 20 minutes to the next race. So I panic, change my tire really quickly. Well, you know how tires have that wax around them? You need to go ride them in a little bit. But I didn't have time. I had to run straight up the hill, get straight in the gate, do a moto, get to the second turn, and just completely slide out because that wax is still on the tire and it's not broken in at all. Hit my head, have a seizure on the track in Oldsmar. I'm unconscious for a few minutes, seizing, right? And so I wake up in the ambulance, and they're like, "You had a seizure." I'm strapped down to a body.
Horrible feeling.
I'm strapped down in an ambulance, and I just start crying. And I'm like, I'm done. Like, I'm never doing this again. Like, I'm done. And so I had to stay overnight in the hospital by myself in Oldsmar. And you can go home, and I had to go through the whole concussion process of going to see doctors and all that. But I was in like a very dark place because for me, I'll break an ankle, I'll break a wrist. I don't want to, but like I'll break a wrist, I'll break a shoulder, whatever. But the head's something you just don't want to mess with. Yeah. Right. And you have a whole life ahead of you. You can deal with a sore knee. You could deal with a click in your shoulder. But like, if you mess up your head, like that's trouble. especially now with everything coming out with football and concussions and all that. So that really spooked me. And so I got clearance from the doctor as far as like, you've recovered from your concussion, everything looks good. But I think I came back too quickly. But I think it's also coming off the heels of what had just happened in 17 and all that. And like, I'm on a high. Like, I'm the Olympic champion. I'm the USA BMX #1 pro. I just won the season for one of the first races of the season. Like, I'm the man. Like, I got to go race. Like, I can't not race. So I rushed back too soon, go straight to the Worlds in Baku. And I will never forget, like, there's one moment I've ever had this happen. And it's like the most, like, if I don't know how people view me as a racer, but I have to imagine when you watch me race, it looks like I'm fucking trying pretty hard, right? Like, it looks like I don't ever look like I'm just chilling.
No.
So I remember in Baku, like, it was an absolute mess. Like, the first day got canceled. It was too windy. Then the second day comes and they're like, all right, we're doing everything today. You have 7 laps. It's like, all right, get through the motos. And I read okay. I think I got a couple of like first, second, third or something in my moto. We get to the quarter and I think I'm like third, fourth pick. And we go to pit gates and like a good gate gets left open. Like 2 or 3 gets left open. Someone goes 1, someone goes 4, someone goes 6. And I'm sitting there and in my mind, I know, I'm like, I should be picking gate 2. Like, that's where I should go. And my finger is like, 8. And I just picked 8 because I wanted nothing to do with being amongst it. I did not want to, I was scared. And I've never been scared in my life. And I'm scared. And so I get in this gate, like, and now I'm thinking to myself, like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to race this race. I don't want to do this. The race before me is Tori's final race. So my childhood best friend, who was my roommate we were 8 years old at super camp, is being bodyboarded off the track limp. I'm scared because I just had a seizure 3 months ago and I don't want to be here. And it was the most pathetic excuse for a race I've ever done. Like, it was an absolute joke. I completely mailed it. I did like a fake high-low in the turn, like trying to look like I was trying. I was trying to look like I was trying, but like, I didn't want to move up. Like, I wanted to be done. And I just remember I was sitting there and Jamie's staff comes up to me afterwards. He's like, you all right? And I was like, no, like, I'm not all right. Like, I'm not okay. And so when I got home, I almost had to rebuild from the ground up, right? So like you were just saying, don't forget, like, I am current ABA champion, Olympic champion.
Yeah.
And my new goal I was starting ground floor. My new goal was the Whitney Mesa Tangent Pro-Am and to try to have a successful race at my home track because I was comfortable at my track. And I was nervous going into that race. Like, it's a Pro-Am. Like, I'm Olympic champion. Like, I was like nervous because I was scared. But then it was just like slowly kind of ticking away at that comfort zone to try to get to the point where you're comfortable again. And then I ended the year and I actually kind of started to come around. And I think I won a race or 2, but I started to kind of feel like my old self. Then I'm like, all right, cool. 2018 was a bust. 2019, let's get this thing rolling. Early 2019, I hurt myself in the gym.
Oh shit. Okay.
So I hurt my back doing some stuff in the gym. I probably wasn't warmed up all the way, or, whatever it was.
Getting old. Just
getting old, whatever it was. The classic BMX lower back.
Yeah.
I had to take more time off because I've hurt my lower back. And I was like a place where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I hit my head last year. My back hurts. My wrist doesn't move anymore because I shattered it in 2016. It's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And there was actually a moment where I had a phone call with Sean Dwight and I was like open and honestly considering just being done. I was like, I've won a bunch of stuff. I'm in college. I got a year till I'm done with college. Like, I don't want to be hurt anymore. It's not worth it to me, to be hurt anymore. And he said, book a flight to come to Australia tonight. Let's start from scratch. And I was like, tonight? He's like, yes. I literally booked a flight that day. I walk in and said, Laura, going to Australia.
Oh my God.
And so I fly to Australia and literally again, it's just like with the Tangent Pro-Am the year before, I started from scratch because I was scared of getting hurt. And if you're riding and you're scared of getting hurt, and like,
you can't race.
I hurt my back in the gym. It wasn't a crash, but the head one was still kind of lingering. Like, it was still there. Like, you'd be going through what you were going through. I didn't want to hit my head again. My back was sore. Like I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know if this is for me. Get to 2019, get to Australia, start from scratch. I do a 6-week training block, and then we just go do an Australian race, like a open day, like nothing fancy. And I win. I'm like, all right, cool. Like that felt good. So then we go do a UCI race and I win. Okay, cool. That felt good. So like, all right, well, it's too late for some World Cups. You've already missed the first couple, but you know, let's try to win the ABA title again. And so I think there's 12 scores left. And at this time you needed 10 scores. So no pressure. You don't really get any throwaways, but I ended up having a great season and going into the grands and securing the title again. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I've worked through the issues that I was going through with my head. My back's feeling better. I feel confident again. Let's go back to Australia because that worked well. 2020 Olympic year. Let's go. Let's rumble.
Yeah.
Chet, 4th first. Boom. Kill it.
Clicking.
You know, that's Bathurst is Bathurst, but get another World Cup win. But I won a legit one in Chet.
Yep.
Then next week I come home, win the national championships in Houston. Things are rolling again. You know, I'm back.
Yeah.
And then COVID happens. And so it literally like broke the momentum that I had kind of worked so hard to build back up.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult then, obviously having Olympics postponed and all that, staying like, I don't want to say with it for another year, but like having to take a deep breath and refocus for waiting another year for it?
Yes, because like going into Olympic year, and you guys probably know this, you're like, all right, cool, like one last huge build and then I get some rest.
Yeah.
Like you're almost like motivating yourself.
You're building to a crescendo.
Yeah, you're motivating yourself by like, I have to do this much more really intense stuff and then I get to take a break. And then now it's like, you did all this stuff. Congrats, you get to do it again for longer.
Yeah.
So, and then I think it was hard for everybody just with what was going on and trying to navigate. What do I do? Are we going to race again? Oh, just kidding. Pros are canceled. You know, we're going to do a World Cup final in Rock Hill. Just kidding. We're not going to do a World Cup final in Rock Hill. Opening a box and getting your World Cup trophy from a box. You know, like the whole thing was just a weird time for everybody.
And then the Grands is a one-shot deal too.
Grands a one-shot deal. And so I just, you know, I laid out a 3-4 month plan and just basically said, I'm going to try to win that race, you know, and, but then at the same time, like I was talking about earlier, like what a great Olympic prep, one shot for all the marbles. Yeah. So just, you know, do a mini Olympic prep for it. And, because 2020 sucked.
Yeah. Was that the biggest payday you've ever gotten for 3 races? The 3 World Cups?
That was a good week. Yes, that was a very good week. A 4th and a 1st. Yeah.
Or the ABA title too, though. You're a one-shot deal.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, a lot of people had a rough 2020. I got paid in 2020. Yeah, 4th, 1st, and Shep. And then, you know, going in Bathurst. And obviously, you know, that was a horrible situation for everybody involved.
Yeah, of course.
I really feel for the race organizers because like they can't do anything about the weather. You know, they wanted to have a good race, and you know, what happened to Kai is awful. Like the whole thing sucked. But going into that, you knew what was coming. You knew it might be a one-shot thing. Mike Day won a World Cup because they went off time trial points or time trial results in 2007. That check still clears. So I was like, I'm gonna go smash a lap right here, and if that's the one, then that's the one. So 50 seconds of work or whatever the lap was, and won a World Cup, and the check cleared.
And we're talking you got to be a pro. If you know the situation is what it is, and you know you might get one lap, you got to go, okay, well, I'm just going to go light this lap up the best I can. And
we all have a choice. If you really are not comfortable, don't go out there.
Yeah.
And if we all like, nobody is like putting a gun to your head and saying, get your ass in the gate, right? Like we are choosing to do this. And if you chose not to, then you chose not to, and you face the consequences that may come with that. But if you're choosing to get in the gate, we know the rule book. We know the situation is not good, and someone's going to win.
Yeah.
I think more people, knew that, but didn't really think they should really need to worry about it. And like, you're like, well, fuck it. I should worry about it. Money's up for grabs.
It's not my job to make the calls. It's not my job to be the UCI. It is my job to play within the rules that I am given. And the rules say that if you have the fastest lap at the end of the time we've stopped running it, you win. So I'm going to, and really it's the same mindset that I have every day. I'm going to try to have the fastest lap every round.
Yep.
Right. So
Gotta get first pick.
Especially when
I'm just gonna do my best.
everyone knew the weather was coming in too, so you don't know when it was good. Everyone was like, well, it might get called a quarters. You never know. Like
You don't know?
No.
So I just went and like, look, I don't want to win a race like that. Like, it'd be awful if somebody won and that was like their one and only time ever winning a race.
Yeah.
And like, it's not really like a real one,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like,
Count it.
the check doesn't say on the check first place, but doesn't count.
Yeah.
It says first place, 3,000 euros. Here you go.
They don't ask how, they just ask how many.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So after obviously that weird year, like going to last year, 2021, obviously the Olympics were rescheduled.
Yep.
Travel was a bit funky, so you didn't do the World Cups, and the whole thing was a bit weird because normally, especially the previous Olympic cycles, everyone was just like hammering World Cups, obviously. So you're racing more domestically in the US, and so how was the kind of the prep like? A bit obviously different.
Yes, I mean, I could have gone to the World
much,
Cups.
but-
I was asked if I wanted to go, and for me at this point, I've been racing World Cups since 2008.
Yeah.
So like I've raced so many, like it's not like I don't feel like it's as beneficial for me to get the experience of flying to Europe, going through that whole thing.
Mhm.
I felt like just physically focusing on my own preparation, racing here, doing that was better use of my time and energy. And that like, it's not like I was going to go to the Olympics, and be like, darn, I wish I had more experience this time. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just focused on being as physically as prepared as I can and racing domestically, and things went really well. Like I circled Rock Hill on the calendar because that was the only big hill race that we had. And I was like, this will be like my big Olympic hit out beforehand. We had 15 laps that weekend and I won 14 of my 15 laps. I mean, it was about as good of a weekend
Almost a
as it
perfect
gets.
weekend.
Yes. And so I was like, perfect. We changed some bike setup stuff during 2020 because we had time. I changed some bike setup stuff.
What did you change?
Yeah, hit me with it. Shorter cranks. Okay.
Rode one in Shepparton and Bathurst 2020. I raced 45, 16, 1/8 because with Tokyo it was a longer track, more pedaling. So we're going to go huge.
Yeah.
When we had time, I hadn't ridden 175s since I was like 16. So then when we had time, we're like, cool, you've got 6 months, put your 175s on. You have plenty of time to get used to them. Then you can focus more on spinning and get comfortable with the timing of the pedal force application out of the gate. So that was my first supercross race on 175 cranks, and it went well. So I was like, cool, like that worked. Let's stick to it. Let's not go back to the 180s. Because Tokyo had like twice as much pedaling as any other track. So, you know, your options were to go smaller cranks to make it easier, or you could go bigger gear, big crank to get the power out. Couldn't apply any fucking power after the first jump anyway, but I digress. So then, yeah, going into that year, just after Rock Hill, then it was like, cool. Then 3 or 4 months to Olympics, let's start another build and get this thing rolling. And I wanted to win the AVA title too. Like Olympics was priority #1, but I wanted to go for that 4th title. And, you know, going into the Olympics, I was in a good position and I was like, perfect, I'll do the Olympic stuff. And then afterwards I'll come back and have a couple more races to finish out the year.
So obviously going into Tokyo, your 3rd Olympics, you've gone through kind of both
Good and bad.
You've gone through the whole shebang. Yeah. What was it like going to a 3rd? Obviously super weird too, because you go from previous Olympics where there's so many people and everyone's watching, and you know the village is such like a it's so cool, like it's happening, people everywhere. It's all of a sudden, okay, you got to wear a mask and stay in your room and there's no people there. Like that's got to be weird.
It is. I'm gonna use the little boys' room before we get into this. Told you I had a blotter of a 5-year-old.
Leave people hanging on it.
This is gonna be
Pro-gate piss break.
Speaking of which, like I hope you go to another one, James, and like Sylvan and guys that haven't experienced like I don't want to say legitimate games, because of course Tokyo was a legitimate games, but you haven't, like the guys haven't experienced like a true fan games, you know?
Let's just call it spade a spade. It fucking sucked.
Like it's of course, but it's not.
It wasn't this
experience. Yeah.
No, it wasn't the same one bit. Everything was just like, all right, cool. Go sit in your shitty room.
Yeah.
And, you know, don't go have a cool area to hang out with everybody. Yeah, no, it's way different.
The crowd and the fans of the Olympics is next level. It's crazy. There's so many people, and the village is popping too. Like the village is so much fun.
When someone says like Olympic Games to you, what's the first one that pops in your head? I think everyone has one that they either watched on TV or been to.
Me, yeah, sure. I love so much. You know, like even even though I was obviously upset I didn't medal, but I was just not only happy with how I rode, but happy. I just enjoyed everything, enjoyed the experience and everything.
Yeah, that's cool. I think of 2012. I don't know why.
Honestly, London, I was so young. I was like, what, 19, 20, however old I was. And I'd come back from India. It wasn't 100%. And like, I don't even like remember it. It was crazy.
Just a young buck. Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? Yeah.
Time just trying to get like back for it. And then the racing was like done in a hurry. And I was just like, I don't even remember it.
Piss break presented by Monster Energy Drink.
Get the plugs in. Get them in now. Get them in while you can.
Yep. Can't wait to go ride my chase bicycles later.
So yeah, talk to us about what was it like going to Tokyo, obviously, as a third.
So going to Tokyo, like it was an absolute mess. Like getting everything ready. Like you had to have so much paperwork. You had to take 47 COVID tests. Like the whole thing. It was not easy.
Yeah.
It wasn't as, not to say it wasn't fun, but like it was not going to have the same vibe as Rio or London, where you're meeting people and exploring and checking things out and all that. But what I just tried to remind myself was at the end of this week, one of these 24 men is going home with an Olympic gold medal. Mm-hmm. And I would very much like that to be me. So I just looked at this as a business trip, honestly. Like it was like, this is going to be fun. This is going to be work. Show up, do the job. Mm-hmm. And if it goes well, I'll have some fun when I get home. I live in Vegas.
Yeah.
And so, going into it, we decided as a team, as a country, to come in at the last minute, just treat it like an ABA race, mm-hmm. and just show up a couple of days before things got going and just get right in.
It's not like you could ride anywhere anyway. So.
Yeah, you're going to go sit in your bedroom on the cardboard bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hope your roommate doesn't put any water on it.
Just collapses. Yeah, I mean, with all that experience there, like did it feel like anything different? Obviously, it just felt like another race. Like, here we go. No one to click my laps off.
No, and I think like I'd had experience before, not at the Olympics, but with being a title like defender, I guess you would say. And I hate when people say title defense, because no one can ever take a title away from you.
Yeah.
Like it's not like when so that's 2017. It ain't like in 2018 I had to give that to Joris.
Yeah.
Like that's mine forever.
Yeah.
So going into the race, it wasn't like I felt all this pressure thinking like, oh my God, like, am I going to lose my title? Like I just was excited at the opportunity to have another shot, because I knew how amazing it was to win the first time. And then I also just knew how much work had gone into it. And, what an opportunity that you have here. Like I'm in best shape of my life. I am absolutely flying. Like prep went perfect. I mean, you were there the last day in Houston, and the last day in Houston before we flew, I was going pretty well. And like,
I was from the outside, it was incredible. Like even watching you at the games, but even in Houston, like it was insane. I think on the first pedal, I was a bike behind. Like
I was really frustrated in Tokyo because I felt like after the first jump, I wanted to go, but you couldn't, because of that second jump. I had so much gas in the tank, but I couldn't use it. And like I had just moved to these damn short cranks, so I could give it some gas at that moment in time, but I couldn't do it. But again, there's that, and then they just decided, hey, let's put a huge lip out of turn 2. Let's put a massive lip. Like just the track was almost really great. Change the 3 lips around, the first straight double, the second straight into the second turn, and then out of the second turn. If you make those lips normal, track was amazing. A little bit long, but overall, I think it would have been fine. And it probably would have been a second or 2 shorter if those lips were decent, because you could have carried your speed better. So it might have not quite been quite as long time-wise. But maybe it's growing up in America. You just show up, and whatever the track is,
you deal with it.
You just go.
Yeah.
And so, I also knew that you don't need to win every lap. You don't need to be in gate 1. It doesn't really matter. You just get to the main, and if you get to the main, you got a shot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, by a mile, my moto was the hardest moto.
That was a moto of death.
We're looking at
it. The moto of death. Yeah,
just like, what the hell is going on here? But got out of it, no worries, and got it. I finished the first day, felt good. First pick in the semi, and I've been through it. I know that doesn't mean anything. Doesn't guarantee anything. Just now I got to get through the semi and get into the main. Doesn't matter if you're in gate 1, gate 5, gate 8. I'd like to be in gate 1. I figured he was coming from 8, and I knew that he was going to be one of the guys. And I would have very much liked to be in lane one. I trusted, because I had been in the position before, I trusted that it wouldn't like overwhelm me being in lane one this time again.
Mhm.
And then going into the second day, I have absolutely no memory of the day.
This is nothing, huh?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember.
What's your last memory?
I remember it was raining and asking Jamie what's going on with the rain.
Like at the track, or
I think it was at the track, but it's like everything in Tokyo,
Wow.
everything last summer and everything in Tokyo is fuzzy as if it was 10 years ago.
so what's how's your memory after?
Fuzzy.
Really?
Yes. So everything before, like I remember snippets, but it's not like thorough. So you know how you remember like a race from 10 years ago, but it's like you remember it, but it's like not as vivid as maybe something that happened last week.
Mhm.
Everything last summer feels like it was 10 years ago.
Wow.
It's like I remember, but it's not crystal clear.
Wow.
So then basically, I remember asking Jamie if we were going to be on a rain delay. And then I woke up in a hospital bed in Tokyo with nobody there.
Did you have any like panic when you woke up in a hospital?
I woke up and I remember opening my eyes. I remember seeing bandages everywhere. And I remember there was no one there.
Oh my God, so sad.
And I looked over and my phone was plugged in next to me. And I opened it and I had 600 text messages. And my phone is just
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And so I looked at the date and it was 4 or 5 days later, maybe 3. It was like,
Wow.
it was
So
a few days later.
Nothing after those days.
And so the first thing I did was open my phone and I just see videos of the crash. Like I'm just tagging the videos of the crash. So I'm like piecing together. I have zero memory of that, but I see the
And
crash.
obviously you're wonky, like you're not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
You're not with it, like you.
So then I FaceTime Laura and she had been warned by the doctors that his phone's by his bed. He may call you because nobody in the hospital speaks English. So like nurse would come in at the time and like,
Nothing.
no one could tell me what's going on.
Wow.
And so I called Laura and
Shocking.
well, it's COVID, dude. No one could get in. Like
Yeah.
friends, family, my parents tried to get there.
It's shocking. None of them even there speak English because you'd think being the Olympics, somebody would.
So
Crazy.
I'll tell you another
Anyways.
story about that in a second.
Yeah.
I called Laura and I'm like, hi. And she's like freaking out that I'm calling her. And then so I don't really remember this. This is all kind of pieced together from like dull memories I have and then Laura. But I guess I was like 10-second Tom, just forgetting what I was saying. And I fell asleep on the phone. But she called Team USA, had a neurologist there. And then he immediately came over to see what was going on. So there was an agreement before the Olympics with a local hospital that if an American athlete was injured or hurt to the point they needed to go to the hospital, that they would be taken there. And that agreement was all good and all there. And I don't know if you remember this, James, but do you remember? I clearly freaking don't. But remember at the games when I was waiting in the ambulance for a very long time and they didn't.
Yeah.
leave? Okay.
Yeah, I was just sitting there the whole time for like, it felt like an hour, but it was probably 20, 30, 40 minutes.
So
It felt like a long time.
So no one knows what's going on because it's only doctors in there, right?
Yeah.
The one reason that someone wouldn't be in a hurry to go to the hospital.
Nothing's moving. Nothing's happening.
They're dead. So everybody's trying to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
Parents, Jamie, Sean, and the ambulance is just not moving. So people are freaking out at this point.
Yeah.
The hospital was like, no, we're full with COVID patients. We can't take them.
Yeah.
Oh,
And they're like, this kid is like potentially dying. Like,
Yeah.
get him in. So, it was a bit of a hairy situation there. And then they ended up finally getting me in. But then they're like, nobody else can be in here. And they're like, we need somebody he recognizes that he knows so that when he wakes up, we can tell if he recognizes that person or not.
Yeah.
They need someone familiar. And so that person ended up being one of Team USA staff members who I'd known for a decade.
Okay.
And so when the neurologist from Team USA, who I didn't know the neurologist, but he brought him in and I recognized him, which was like a good first kind of sign. And from there, it was like a bunch of tests and scans, but all of the reports from the MRI were in Japanese. So we didn't
No
know.
way.
So then we had to get them translated because we don't know, like the doctor can't read an MRI report or CAT scan report in Japanese.
Yeah.
The whole thing was like a very, very rough situation, but it would have been so much smoother if not for COVID stuff. But because of all the restrictions and all the issues that COVID had, is very bad. So it got all the way like to the point where like my parents were trying to get over there, like trying to figure out what could be done. And like there was nothing. And it was at the point where basically, and not to like be depressing here, but my dad was told that if I died, he could come over and escort my body home.
Holy shit.
Wow.
Which like I couldn't imagine as a father having to hear that.
No kidding.
You'd want to say fuck that and just get on a flight and go there.
You won't get let in.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
And so, I mean, I feel really bad for the people like around me that had to go through all that stuff. And then 9 days later,
We're in the hospital the whole time for the 8-9 days.
Yeah. And I was not well, like I was not acting like myself, but I remember just like texting Asuma and Akai and being like, bring me Starbucks. And like, I can find notes on my phone, like spelled wrong, like looks like I'm drunk. I'm like, bring me Starbucks. He's like, I can't, but I can't. And I'm like, hey. He probably lives an hour away. And I'm like, telling him to bring me so I get permission to fly home with medical escort. So medical escort, I get an upgrade on the way home.
So is the doctor that just
Hannah.
Oh, really?
And she tested like blood pressure, made sure it was all good.
Can I ask before you go there, what was they tell you there what the extent of the injuries were? Or was this told to you later on?
I don't know if they did or not, but I had 4 brain bleeds.
Okay.
Swelling on my parietal lobe, my frontal lobe. I had bruising to my brain stem and my corpus callosum.
Okay.
If you bruise your brain, like your brain stem, like you can't really mess with your brain stem. Like had I hit a little harder, or had I been in hypothetically a lesser helmet, been dead on impact.
Yeah.
So everything worked out exactly to where it was a horrible injury. And then everything worked out to where I ended up being completely okay. Like it was just like the recovery. I'm so thankful and happy that it ended up being what it was. But I had a lot of issues with like processing speed. I had a lot of issues with like word recall. Like, you know, when you can't think, like, remember a minute ago when you couldn't think of a question? I couldn't think of fucking anything. And then I also had no inhibition. Like, you know, when you're drunk, you'll say or do whatever and you don't care. I was drunk all day, every day. I mean, I was telling people things I should never have told them. And I hope I didn't tweet or text or say anything inappropriate to people, because they should have taken my phone from me for at least 6 weeks, because I was not well. So I got home and went immediately to Salt Lake City, to a brain rehabilitation center there for rehabilitation for a few weeks. And then I had just been in Houston for 2 months, went to the Olympics, and all I wanted to do was go home.
Yeah.
And I was able to, because of COVID, they had distance rehabilitation. And for me, I was very lucky. Nothing physical was affected. Just my broken ribs, collapsed lung, torn ligaments in my shoulder and bicep, but nothing in my brain was affected physically. So
it's fucking insane you say all that. That's just a BMX. Like when you have such a gnarly injury, it's like just that, thankfully.
That's obviously like the main thing.
Yeah, well, you don't care about a broken rib when you're sleeping 16 hours a night.
Yeah.
So when I got home, or when I found out everything physically was good, it was just like cognitive stuff. I was able to do Zoom rehab. So we were able to do rehab on Zoom for an hour every day. And then eventually over time, it was down to 3 days a week. Then it was down to 1 day a week to finish rehab. And I would say it was probably not until around Christmas time that I actually felt normal.
Wow.
Rehab, like what were your exercises like? What'd you do?
Early on, it was much simpler. So early on, I had to repass my driver's test with like a simulator, tracking moving objects, things like that. But early on, it was something as simple as taking a 3-word sentence, like I am Tori, and then saying it backwards. So that'd be Tori am I. I couldn't do it.
Wow.
It was lots of like brain puzzles, but it was like elementary level.
So mental processing.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
So things like that. And then it was also memory stuff like recall. So it was like, I couldn't remember someone gives you 5 words and says, remember these 5 words, I wouldn't remember any of them.
Mhm.
So, but I guess it was like a muscle where you got to use it more and you kind of can get all back. And so I took a test. It was like a 3-hour test initially when I got there. And then in January, I went back and took another 3-hour test. And it tracked all of the improvements that I made. And then it compared me to average people that are college graduates in my age bracket.
Mhm.
So it was a comparative thing. And initially I was wildly low in a few things, but everything came back to like average or above average levels.
Mhm.
And at that point in time, they were able to say, like, we think you've made a full recovery. If you feel okay, if you feel normal, we think you've made a full
It's
recovery.
so hard to know because
It's not like a bone where you can
Yeah.
x-ray it and say you're good,
Yeah.
but it was essentially like, if you are able to do everything that you could do beforehand, your brain is working at a
you're
high
functional
level,
person in society, and
you should be fine. And
Yeah.
now the only thing I still feel is a bad night's sleep affects me worse than it did.
interesting.
I get like, if I hit that point of like fatigue and tired, my brain just stops.
Mhm.
But other than that, I feel pretty normal. But my reward for passing all my brain stuff was I had to get shoulder surgery because they didn't want to put me under too soon because of the brain
It's a
stuff.
risk, yeah.
So
right?
then I had to go and get my shoulder and bicep fixed up. And so then it was like, you graduated brain rehab, 5 months of shoulder rehab.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So, so I did all that. And, that one, it's almost easier because it's just, you follow the program, you do what you're told, stem and ice, do the exercises, and, over time it gets better. And then I'll never forget, when I made the Olympics, my agent Brad had sent me a bottle of champagne and he said, hey, save it for after the Olympics. And then 11 months later, after my last day of rehabilitation, after 11 months, I popped that bottle of champagne with my therapists.
Cool.
And
No way.
yeah,
Cool.
it was pretty cool. But during the brain rehab, like,
It's awful rehab to do too. It's hard.
I really approached it the same way I approached racing,
Yeah.
in that, like, I changed my diet. I eliminated processed sugars. I eliminated alcohol. I prioritized sleep. I went to I found a hyperbaric chamber in Vegas and I went every single day. Like anything and everything I could find that would potentially help, I did.
You got to attack it.
Because I was like, if there's ever been something, like, I spent 10 grand like on random stuff, it might have helped, might not have.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if there's ever anything to like invest in and do it, it's like your brain. Like, you only get
If you don't have your brain, you don't have
so
anything.
I went nuts
Yeah.
trying to do everything I possibly could to get my brain better. And I'm thankful that I did. It all worked out. And then on that first day after the shoulder rehabilitation, I went to the track and I rode. And I was like, I don't want the last memory of riding do that. And so, that was kind of a cool thing. And to be honest, I was actually wildly shocked. I felt pretty good. I was like, still got it. Like, it's all good. Like, I'm all good. So it's I was riding with Isaac and stuff. And so, like, dude, you look the same. I'm like, dude, I still got it. But it was just crazy how in the blink of an eye, I was in the best shape of my life. All this opportunity in front of me. Still made the main, even though I didn't finish. Like, I had pretty much made the main already. And then in the blink of an eye, it's like you're fighting for your life.
Yeah.
And like how much that changes. And like when I get in the gate for that third semi, I imagine that my thought process would have been 4th place is the worst thing that could happen today.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would have given anything to get 4th.
Yeah.
Fucking wish I got 4th. And it's one of those crazy situations, like with the way it all happened. Like, I don't blame Romain. I don't think it was intentional. It was not an accident, but it just so happened that I just overshot the jump enough and he just cut over enough. And if it was anybody else, Romain turns with his hips rotated.
Mhm.
He rotates his hips when he turns.
Mhm.
His hip clipped my handlebar. If that was anybody else in the exact same spot, their hip probably doesn't clip my handlebar. And it just so happened
Crazy.
every little thing lined up to where it was I happened so fast I couldn't put my hands out. I hit the front of your helmet. That's the worst place to hit because the impact can only spread 180 degrees. If you hit the side, it can spread 360. Everything happened to be the worst possible thing, but everything also lined up that everything turned out to be okay in the end.
Mhm.
So it's just the whole scenario. It's pretty wild.
So what ultimately led you to decide to retire?
So even before 2021, I was 28 years old in 2021. I was no spring chicken. I was my thought process was, I'm going to just pour my heart and soul into this year. I'm going to try to win the Olympics again, try to win a world title, try to win the 4th ABA title. And then at the end of the year, I'll see how I'm feeling. And, is there a chance that maybe I'll decide, you know what, I'm good. Like I had a good run and I want to exit now. Maybe I'd be like, yeah, maybe I just want to do ABA. And for those who don't know, ABA is USA BMX.
Yeah.
It's always ABA. Maybe I will decide I want 6 months off and then I'll come back for a Paris run. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but my plan was always to get through the year and do it. Now it's a very hard thing to step away from it. Like, you know, and this is pre-injury. It's like, I am one of the best couple of people in the world at what I do. I make good money doing it. I have amazing opportunities. How on earth could you step away? Well, like if it doesn't make you happy, if you doesn't, well, you wake up in the morning and you're like, not that you're ever going to be excited to do uphill sprints, but if you're like very much like, I don't want to do this, like I didn't want to force myself to do something that I didn't want to do. But then after the injury, nobody wants to go out like that. Nobody wants their final race to be a race they don't remember. I mean, I was, you know, a lap and 3/4 away from potentially having a shot to win a gold, silver, bronze medal again. Right. And, you know, if I don't overshoot that double, or Romain decides to not cut over as hard or whatever, I probably have lane 1 in the main. What an opportunity. You're in lane 1 in the Olympics. Maybe it works out. Maybe it doesn't. You never know. But at least for everybody who got to race that race, at least they know, right? Like I don't know. And then it's not like all that training goes away. And 2 weeks later, you got a shot at a world title. And I was leading ABA points, I think, at this time. So you got a shot there. And it's like, it's really hard knowing that you left all that on the table and that you didn't finish it off, right? So then it's like, okay, so I'm 29 years old now, and the doctors cleared me, and they basically said, you have no restrictions. However, you need to understand, if you hit your head again, much, much higher risk of it being a significant injury than it was before. If you have the same crash now that you would have had before, and before maybe it was a mild concussion, now it will be a moderate to severe concussion. You can't take a hit anymore. So then for me, it's like, I'm sitting here battling on one side. It's like, well, I could fucking win, right? Like I'm sitting here like, I could win. And then on the other side, it's like, but what if you hit your head again?
Yeah.
Right. And so then you know, if I could sign a contract with the universe and it was going to guarantee me that I would never hit my head again, I probably would have raced through Paris. It doesn't work that way. And so then for me, it's like, do I want to live the rest of my life with a significant brain damage because I came back to race a little bit too much, and I wasn't even my fault. I was in second. The rider in first crashed. I hit him, flipped the bars, hit my head. Nothing I could do, right? And like that's what can happen. Like you could do everything right, and you get a flat tire, and it's not even your fault. And I just wasn't willing to take the risk of permanent damage. You know, my family having to deal with that, risking my future for the next 50 years to try to go for my 4th ABA title, my 4th Olympics, my 9th World Cup win. Like, you know, you got to know when to just tap out and say, you know what, had a good run and it's okay. So then last year I had this really, really tough period for about a month, maybe 2 months, where I was like, all right, I've made the decision that I'm not going to go full on and go for Paris, but I want to race the Grands. I want to come back. I want my last race to be something I'm proud of. Right. And so then I was doing a bit of training, and I was kind of, you know, at this point I was kind of thinking I was going to come back and race the Grands. And it's like, all right, this could go 3 ways. Come back and win. Like, what an amazing story. You come back, you win the Grands, you go out on top, you retire, you mic drop, peace. Like, amazing. What if you come back and you just get knocked out in quarters? Like, I've never missed a Grands podium. Like, I'm not going to be cool with getting quartered, right? Like, that's not going to be like, and then it's like cool. Like you came back, but like, that's not me. Like, I don't want to go get quartered. What if you go and you crash? What if you break your leg? What if you hit your head again? Like, are you going to be happy that you went and did it? You know, even if that's a 1% chance of that happening, are you going to be happy that you went and did it? And so for me, it was really hard to kind of figure out what I wanted to do with that. And if I wanted to come back and race that one race, or if I didn't. And so, you know, what it really came down to is I would rather in 50 years be sitting here thinking, man, I really wish I would have raced that one race, rather than be sitting here thinking,
One race too much.
I really wish that I had my driver's license still because I didn't hit my head that one race too much. Right. And like the risk and the reward just wasn't quite there. When I talked to the doctors, I called the doctor back to talk to him again, because I was like really struggling with this. And I was like, how bad is it going to be if I hit my head again? Like, what's going to happen if I hit my head again? You know, what if I had a different part in my head? Not one of the 4 brain bleeds I had. What if I had a different side of my head? You know, is that going to be okay? And like asking him all these questions. And it just really came down to like, we're not going to wrap you in bubble wrap. Like, I'll go ride my mountain bike. I'll ride the track still for fun, but I'm not going to take unnecessary risks. And bombing down the Supercross hill is not really something that I view as a risk that I'm willing to take anymore. And then at the same time, going into a race thinking like, I want to race but not crash, like that's never going to end well. So for me, I just ultimately decided, it was a very hard decision, but I ultimately decided like, hey, I could win, but I'm going to just fold the cards and walk away.
How do you feel now? Any regrets?
No. I mean, I think the regret's not the word. I think there's definitely always going to be a piece of me that thinks like, you know, fuck, like how would that have gone had I unclipped in that third semi out of the gate and just, you know, rolled around an 8th and been in gate 7 in the main? Like, how would that have gone? You know, how did it gone had I finished that race and I won that race and been lane 1 in the main? Like, you work 5 years for something and then you don't even know how it ends. So that part sucks. And then like, I think there's always going to be a piece like watching the races where I'm like, oh, I could smoke these guys, but like, eventually that'll fade. But like, clearly right now I can't, but I think there's always a little piece of you that has that. And I think that's part of what gets you to that level. But I don't have regret. It's more of just like, you know, it's a bummer that happened. But then as soon as I start to get sad, I'm like, I'm all good. Like life is good. I'm healthy. I'm happy. And I remember every other race. I don't remember that one, but I remember every other race. And so it's really easy when I do get sad to just shift it, focus on the positives instead of getting stuck focusing on the one bad thing.
Yeah. I think I'm coming from such a horrific incident to then be able to, I don't know, transition it now to be able to be happy and understand the situation. I think that's cool. That's really cool, I think.
Proud of you for stopping too, because a lot of people would have just kept going and probably not been as intelligent about it.
Thanks. Well, I like to think that I have a good brain, and that's why I didn't want to risk it. But I think it, that's the type of thing that you have to almost go through to understand. And something that I don't expect. I don't expect 19-year-old Connor would never have understood this decision. 19-year-old Connor would have viewed the whole thing completely different. But when you go through that experience, when you wake up in the morning and have to ask yourself every day, am I going to feel this way forever? And be terrified and be in a hyperbaric chamber, literally like crying because you're like, I can't remember, you know, my grocery list from this morning. I had 3 items because that was like a challenge. Remember, milk, egg, sugar. I couldn't do it. And so like crying because I can't remember my grocery list. Like that's not something that I want anyone to ever have to go through. But when you go through that, and like, I'm about to go golfing this afternoon with Tori and probably hit 200, like, but I can go golf and I can live a life and I can do all that. And so it's so easy to be positive and happy when you've gone through the other side of it.
What are you using your brain for now? Now that BMX is in the rearview mirror, what's next for you? What are you doing now?
I don't know. Is coffee chatter hard? No, I'm doing a lot of like, I don't have like one specific thing. I'm doing a number of different things. I'm doing some coaching. I'm still involved with pace, with development, you know, bikes, different bike development, things like that. I'm doing some clinics and some stuff. I really enjoy working with the younger, like not even just younger, but entry level rider, the novice, the inner, like the pure like enjoyment and fun that they have from it. You know, when you're working with experts, it's a different kind of challenge. But when you have an intermediate or a novice and you're teaching them how to balance in the gate and they're just like so stoked on life to be there, it's a really cool feeling.
That's awesome.
You know, I doing lots of stuff. I mean, I interviewed with NBC a few weeks ago.
No way.
Some commentating stuff for the Olympics and some different things like that. I did my senior internship with my agent. And after I graduated college, he's like, hey, you were good. You want keep interning for me, but, just be my assistant. And so I'm doing that. And I'm doing a little public speaking. I got like a lot of little things going on.
Yeah.
Taking a deep breath, because after 23 years of focusing on one thing with racing, I'm going to give myself a year or two to kind of figure out what do I want to be when I grow up? What do I want to do?
Totally.
Do I go this route? I want to go that route.
Take some time to know.
Yeah. So, and I want to make the right decision. So I want to think things through a little bit.
I like it. That's really cool. Really cool.
I was
We've
gonna
been doing.
Great flow. You guys are fantastic. If I'm making you nervous, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, James.
I've been nervous the whole show. You should see the prep sheet I made just for my nerves here.
Should we get into some quick shots?
Yeah, let's do that. Should I have one? Go do the quick shots. It's okay. Do the quick shots.
Those are our fan questions. So it's basically a short answer, whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
From T.O. Josh Larson. Oh no, that's not really a question.
Okay, you cannot make fun of James anymore after that.
That's not really a question. Hollywood BMX. What do you prefer, 8 meters or standard USA BMX style hill, and why?
Interestingly enough, when I was younger, I loved the 8 meter, and I didn't like the flat hill. And then as I got older, it went the other way. Now I like both. I think there's a place for both, but I like the 8 meter hill, or sorry, the small hill now more than the 8 meter hill. I think you get more variation and difference between the fastest guys, the top guys, and the next guys on a flat hill, as opposed to the 8 meter hill where you have so much help from the hill. First through eighth at the bottom of the 8 meter is nothing. First through eighth, once you get to 8 cranks on a flat hill, is a significant difference. Personally, I think that the small hill, if it's built on a really good track that's technical, allows for more variations and more skills to be shown, whether it's a pickup manual, a pedal manual, a tap manual, jumping, different things like that. Versus on an 8 meter hill, you take 8 cranks, you pump through the bottom, you jump a double. You take 2 cranks, you jump a double. You take 2 cranks, you hit some variation of a triple step up or a step up, step down into the first turn. I just named every first straight on Supercross in the world. And so you kind of become a one-trick pony at the 8 meter, whereas in the small stuff, I think you can see more variation, and I like the variation of that. That's a long-winded answer, but old me, when I'm old, like now, when I'm dusty, I like the flat hill. Young me, like the big hill.
Fair enough. From Hollywood BMX 19, this is a double shot, so 2-1. What's one thing you'll miss about racing, and one thing you won't miss about racing?
One thing I will really miss is there's an amazing feeling, and if anyone else has had this, they can recognize it, they can understand this. There's a really cool feeling of being out there, whether it's like practice on the day or it's behind the gate, and you just know.
You just feel powerful.
You're like, I'm gonna win. Like I'm gonna and not just win, I'm gonna rip these guys' heads off. I'm gonna absolutely ruin their day. And like that's a really cool feeling of like just having like all the work that's gone into that to getting that feeling, and just knowing like even before the gate goes down, and not in an arrogant way, but just knowing like I'm gonna stick to my plan, I'm gonna execute. My best is better than your best. See you at the podium. Like that's a really, really cool feeling. It's not a common one. You don't get it often, but it takes a lot of work to get there. When you get that reward, that feeling is almost as great as the feeling of winning. One thing I won't miss. Now, everybody has a different idea of what living the dream means. To me, the dream is a private jet on the way to a beach in Hawaii where my mansion awaits. Like that's the dream for me.
Yeah.
The dream is not waiting 3 hours at the airport for my 3 roommates to come, jamming 4 bicycles into a compact car, driving to the La Quinta, sleeping 4 wide in the La Quinta for a continental breakfast for 7:30 a.m. warm up. And now I did my hard yards. I did my years over the years where I would be sharing a bedroom with 4 BMXers and, going to the airport straight from the track, dusty and dirty and filthy. And like, the way you have to travel sometimes, I won't miss that. I won't miss, trying to save the budget and sleeping on the floor in a red roof inn. I won't miss that.
That's fair.
From Rob Slatter, if you had to redo a race, which race would you like to go back and re-race?
So I think like there's, James, have you heard of the butterfly effect?
I have actually, yes.
Okay. So if this is completely like removing the butterfly effect and like I change a race and it doesn't change anything else, because if you change one, it could change.
Everything changes. Yeah.
So obviously the easy answer is Tokyo, right?
Yeah.
Like would love to have just, you know, played it old school ABA. Do you remember when they would win their first 2 motos and they'd roll the third moto to save the gas?
Yeah.
I should have just rolled the third main and just said, see you guys in the main. I'm gonna save some gas for this long track. But that's the easy answer. The other 2 that really come to mind is that Rotterdam 2014 Worlds. You know, come out of the first turn and just go a little farther to the inside out of the first turn and bang, world champion right there. And I completed the set, got every single thing possible. And then London, the Olympics Gate 1, you know, if I could redo it and be more mature with my approach and focus on the process instead of the after party, then maybe Maris would have had enough gas and he just beat me anyway. I don't know, but we don't know. Like I would have much rather just gotten a chance to do it properly as opposed to, you know, my gate was a little bit off and Twan speared me. So it was 0 for 2.
Yeah. From Eli_Shaw, what's your favorite BMX skill? So like tap manual, pull manual, jumping, nose manual, gates, etc.
I think my strength was pedaling over stuff. And I mean, I'm a young kid from America. Like that's all we do is pedal stuff. So I was foreign friends like Trent or Isaac or even Joris was like practicing that. Like, they go to the track and learn how to pedal over jumps. But like I had never had any issue pedaling over jumps. And I would get to a track, and if the first jump was a pedal jump, I was like, oh boy, here we go.
There we go.
Pedaling over stuff was definitely my strength.
From Quill and Isidore, your most unexpected World Cup win and why? Good question.
There isn't necessarily one that comes to mind. I mean, Bathurst does, because like no one expects to win a World Cup or winning a moto, but I don't really count that one. You know, the other ones, like, to be honest, it'd be easier for me to tell you like the World Cups I expected to win and didn't, right? Because there's a bit of a mindset that goes into like you expect to win or at least contest all of them, right? Like I wanted to win or contest all of them. But I think, I guess the first one is always a shock, right? Like you think you can do it, but you don't know. So like winning that first one is always such a big moment and a big shock that is like, wow, like I actually did it. So I'd have to say that first one was a little unexpected, just also because I went so backwards. I won 3 World Cups before I ever won an ABA race.
No way.
So going to London, gate 1 in London, I hadn't even won an ABA race yet.
Well, how about that? That's a stat right there. Are you kidding me?
So
wild stat.
So like, you know, I would say like that first World Cup, that was my first professional win was a World Cup, not a national, not a nat chant, like nothing. It was a World Cup. So that probably was my most unexpected, because it was like, congrats, you got your first win. It was a World Cup.
Classic. From Sean Collins, one of our guys here. Are we going to get a victory lap at Grands next month?
No.
No,
I'll be there. I'll be hanging out. I don't.
Go to Cracker Barrel.
Yeah, we go to Cracker Barrel. I'm not going to go and just do a lap and.
Yeah. I didn't think so.
Yeah, I'm old now. My style's stiff. Like it ain't going to be pretty, but.
From Are the Beers Cold 34. I just laughed every time.
Can confirm the beers are cold these days.
Oh my god! Man. What was your all-time favorite win apart from Rio, pro or amateur?
It would be a pro race for sure. Like, you know, I don't think people can understand.
You mean that win in Roseville when you were 12?
The minute you turn pro, every single thing that you did as an amateur, throw it in the garbage. It doesn't.
Your career starts when you turn pro.
And not to say it doesn't matter, and like it's part of what forms you into what you are as a pro.
Your career is pro.
But no pro is ever sitting there like, oh my god, when I won 15x at the fall nats, you know, that really changed my life. Like, you don't even remember it. I don't know. It's hard to say favorite. I mean, Red Bull Revolution was a cool one. For me, it was more like the races that I had to work really hard to come back from something to win. Those ones meant a lot. It's like winning. I remember winning in Shepparton meant a lot because I had just come off of 2018 and 19, which were really hard years. And I didn't win a World Cup in 18 or 19. I wasn't even close. Actually, I think I got a second at one or something, but I really wasn't close to winning. And to be able to come through that, and now it's Olympic year, and actually like finish the job and do it. And that was a good one too, because I came from behind. Like I was losing in that race and I made a pass to win. And so that was a big one, I think, just one that sticks out as like a really good win. And then I guess the other one would be 2020 Grands. Like one race, you win one race and you win the title. And like the pressure that went into that, like that was a very much a pressure cooker. And you hadn't raced in 8 months, which for BMXer is like 12 years. Like that you just
so weird.
Wondering if I'd forgotten how to race. And that was a really cool one to do that as well.
This isn't my question. This is kind of funny. This guy PV_46 says Connor Fields has bladder issues when traveling by car.
That's my boy Paul, and as you guys learn on the show, I like to stay hydrated. Proper hydration leads to peak performance. So
dehydration is the enemy.
It is. So I do have to pee quite frequently, but what are you gonna do?
Real question there from H_P_W. What's your biggest unpopular opinion in BMX? It's an interesting question.
It's a really good question. I would need to know what constitute what is an unpopular opinion? Like, can you give me examples? I mean, the first couple of things that come to my mind are, I touched on it earlier, but not every race has to be about the Olympics. Like, I hate the captions where it's like, Olympic points start this weekend. Like, the Olympics is in 2 years, dude. Like, just try to make it out of motos this weekend, and let it do good every weekend. And if you do that, things take care of itself in the long run.
That's a good one.
On top of that, I absolutely hate. Okay, so I'm gonna go on a little rant for a second.
We love a good rant on here.
Back in my day, uphill both ways in the snow with no shoes on.
Yeah, we did.
Things have changed a lot in the past decade with people prioritizing performance as opposed to marketing and branding. And so they will wear or do anything if they think it's going to make them perform better, with no regard for how it makes themselves or the sport look. And everybody can do what they want. It's a free sport, I guess. I was going to say a free country, but all these countries do it. But as an example, if you run a brand like Fly or Fox or Thor, and you look at a BMX race and you see all these people wearing sweatpants, or whatever you call the really tight pants that people wear these days, those brands are not going to be interested in investing in supporting BMX racers and BMX teams. And now I get the other side of it is like, if they can shave a 10th off because they're aerodynamic and they're light, I get it. But I feel like it should be somewhere in the middle where there's performance involved, but it's also, we're trying to represent the sport well. And you're seeing it now with the energy drinks. 5-6 years ago, Rockstar had a big presence. There was 5, 6, 7 Red Bull athletes. Monster had myself and Donnie. You're slowly seeing the energy drinks pull completely away from BMX racing because it's not doing a good job of being like cool and marketing itself. And so everybody loves to talk about how much money is not in the sport and how we're not making any money, but people aren't doing a good job of providing value for these sponsors at the same time. And so, look, I get it. I want to win just as bad as the next guy. But there's a balance of trying to look professional and do a good job marketing yourself in the sport to bring more money in while also trying to win.
Yeah.
You get to the Olympics, you can't brand anyway. Once you're at the Olympics, for everyone that it actually matters, you're going to have your skin suit at the one race. You really need your skin suit. But when you're at the Grands, like, maybe let's make this look really cool and like wear the products. Wear the products that we're trying to get to come in.
We should never get away from the cool factor of our sport. James, let's do 2 more.
Can I hit him with one of my my deep questions?
Okay, I'll go first. Chipotle or In-N-Out?
That is a mean question.
We ask everyone the same.
There's only okay, then I'll ask my one other question too then. But this is only one answer to this question.
You gotta pick
one.
I
need to know the scenario. Is it post like?
No, it's just Chipotle or In-N-Out.
If I only had to eat one for the rest of my life, I'd pick Chipotle. I love me some In-N-Out, but I try to be healthy. I try to keep it tight, and Chipotle is better for that.
Okay. I'll ask this question then too. Would you rather do a race with 3 chainring bolts or 3 stem bolts?
Out of 4, like 3 or 4.
Jesus Christ.
All you got to do is get top 4. Make it on to the next round.
Big hill or small hill?
Big hill.
Big hill, I'd probably do it with the 3 chainring bolts.
Really?
Yep, that's what I'm talking about.
There's much force out.
I know, but still, the first 4 cranks, all I have to do is don't case.
Yeah, dude, I actually had trouble with stems because I would rip so hard.
You're shearing your cranks off.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess big hill, I'd go with no chainring bolts. Small hill, I'd go with no.
Can you imagine a small hill with 3 bolts? I think it'd be off and half crank.
That's why I would do it. But can I go D, none of the above?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, that's option that no one takes.
Life.
All right. One last hard-hitting deep question that I just am going to start doing. This is not the question. I'm prefacing it. Pick a number between 1 and 3.
1.
All right. What is a question that no one asks you that if asked, it would reveal an untapped answer?
Oh, wow. Jesus. Yeah,
that's deep, eh?
Yeah, wow. I don't want to.
Are you kidding me? So what's something that no one asks you that you're surprised they haven't because there'd be a lot behind it, or maybe people really just don't expect?
That's kind of an odd question. Where'd you get that one?
No, it's a great question. I wish I would have had like 20 minutes to think about it.
I asked this before too, and this happened last time. I asked it at the end. Should have asked it at the beginning.
Who'd you ask before?
I can't remember. We had somebody else on. I think I asked it, but they couldn't give an answer.
Yeah,
I have like 5 or 6 really deep questions that I can ask myself, or I want to ask people, but I can't ask them all. It'd be like a whole hour podcast if I asked 5 of these questions. We can pick one of mine. You want to pick? You got one?
I'll pick the other one. But what I will say that I wish people did more of, and I know it's like it's a taboo subject. I wished the pros amongst themselves talked more about money. Because I feel like it's so hush hush and nobody knows what anybody makes and nobody knows what anybody's deal is, that if everybody was a little bit more like respectful and like work together to understand like, hey, yeah. I get this. Hey, you should ask this, that it would be helpful. But because I want to see everybody get paid. I wish everybody got raises and everybody had deals and everybody was killing it. But no one's ever really come to me and been like, hey, I'm turning pro this year. What's a reasonable amount to ask for a company? Should I ask for $1,000 a month? Should I ask for $10,000? Like, people don't know.
Yeah.
So I wish that there was a little bit better communication amongst the riders. And every company that's listening to this right now is like, no.
That's because most say like you're sworn to secrecy of non-disclosure or whatever. So.
And you don't need to specifically share what I make, but you can say, hey, a rookie pro is going to be worth this.
Yeah.
A deal for a tire sponsor is roughly going to be between this and this. Like, I feel like there should be more of that, because a lot of younger riders get taken advantage of because a team will just be like, hey, here's a couple of free t-shirts. And then they get taken advantage of. So I wish that I probably screwed myself. I'll be at the Grands and 47 kids are going to come up to be like, what am I doing? I wish people, share it a little bit more. Stuff.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
But
15 BMX posted that your boy Isaac is possibly going to be signing for Chase next year. Is he getting the bag or what?
I can neither confirm nor deny. Under contract with Speedco Bicycles through December 31st of this year.
I don't know where 15 got this information.
I have no idea what's going to happen after that. I'm excited to watch him at the Grands. I think it's going to be a great battle between him, Josh. Joris needs one more score. I don't know where Cam would be now, but I think he'll be up there in the mix. USA BMX going from 10 to 8 scores has really tightened the whole thing up.
Yeah. And
it's going to be interesting to watch that whole thing unfold. And I'm excited to watch it. And then in January, I guess we'll find out.
All right. Well, I think we've officially done your retirement show. So thanks for coming on. It was fun to hear about your career and more in depth. Obviously, I kind of lived it with you, I feel like, with training and racing, but it was cool to hear more about it.
Thank you. And now that I'm done and I'm old, if you all ever need a pundit to come on and talk about some stuff, I'm always down.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we got our secret third member now, T.
Yeah, we do. Thanks for coming on, buddy. That was fun.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
Thanks for everyone in the YouTube chat. Thanks to ProGate Europe. Winning starts with a great gate.
Hey, hang on a second before we stop. James, you going to the Grands this year, or you training or something?
I mean, I'm training, but no, absolutely, I'm coming this year.
Okay.
We got a live show going on there too, outside the Answer BMX Esquire Claiborne rig. Pretty sick. Swing by. Fans would love to see you. So yeah, no, thanks again, Connor. It was awesome to hear your story, hear from you, especially after what a scary incident last year was. So fantastic.
Sure, people will love to hear.
Good times, boys.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Don't forget, snap on green.
Snap on green.